peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
In any developed democracy, or nurtured democracy, or developing democracy, all these three tenets stand with interdependence of views, but not interconflicting views. They run on consensus, but above all rises the governance structure of a government. There is a head of government who is the president of the Republic of any country. Like for example, Kenya. He represents Kenya in the international community, foreign policy, internal policy, health policy, legal policy. He cannot be a president without telling the people, showing the direction on how the legal framework is being utilized in any of his, on the citizens of his country. Therefore, President Uhuru Kenyatta stands as a symbol of the nation who should be respected at all times. Respect can be equalized, but there is more. That's why President Uhuru Kenyatta was sworn in by Maraga, but not as an equal to Maraga, but as a president of Republic of Kenya. Equally, when the Chief Justice comes to swear in, where does he swear in? In front of who? That shows you the power matrix that lies in this state of governance, the structure of governance, of governing a state and a democratic institution. Therefore, it is only men who stopped outside classrooms, who did not know, who will not know, who are not able to know the difference between the judiciary and the chief executive of the executive, who is the president of the Republic of Kenya. So whom does he pay allegiance to? The president of the Republic of Kenya. Therefore, under Article 171, 1A, it is very clear that the recommendations made by JSC in Article 172, 1A are very clear. The president received the recommended names, but has to sit down to make his decision on how, whom. It takes time at times with this recommendation that some of the intelligence must be corroborated with international agencies, especially when it touches money laundering. Therefore, on this one, President Uhuru Kenyatta is right. Thank you very much, my viewers.
My name is Bishop Dr. John Warari. I come to you to give you hope. 80% of those who have the infection are recovering. So we must not lose hope. Follow the instructions of the Ministry of Health. Simple instructions. 1, we have been told to sanitize, to clean our hands as often as possible. As you wash your hands, do it for about 20 seconds. That one will keep away and destroy the virus that could have been in your hands. It is important for us not to use our hands in greeting each other. For more information, kindly dial 719 and you will get help, or you can go to your phone and press *719# and you will get more information. Komesha Corona.
Hamjamboni, kwa majina naitwa Priscilla Mwikali Makau. Mimi ni daktari katika hospitali yetu kuu ya Mathare inayoshughulikia mambo na changamoto za akili. Wakati kama huu unaweza kupitia mambo mengi, wafikiria sana, mafikirio yako yalikuwa mengi, yanasongamana, magombana na watu. Tuomba uweze kutumia nambari 1199 ili uweze kupatana na mhudumu wa afya kwa upande mwingine. Pamoja tukomeshe corona.
Ni vipi tutaepuka ili janga la corona, maana kote duniani linazidi kusambaa, ni wengi wametuacha.
Yo guys, it's your boy DJ Euphoric here. So sad coronavirus is here with us. Na sisi wase tunaishi na disability, we have to make sure maze protect ourselves. Clean your assistive devices, especially those parts that zina come in contact with your body, kama armrests, brakes and wheel rims. Disinfect using the approved disinfectants from the Ministry of Health.
Sanitize, osha vizuri mikono yako. Quarantine and it's gonna be alright.
Hi, my name is Christina Rico. I'm a mother to Elsa Wanjiko. Elsa Wanjiko has a special need. She has cerebral palsy. During this time of COVID-19, everybody is feeling anxious and fearful. As a mother of child with special need, I'd like to encourage all mothers and caregivers that we follow the government directives of wearing a mask every time we leave our houses, wash our hands with clean running water, we sanitize our hands, and also sanitize the equipment that our child uses, like the wheelchair, whenever we want to take them out. And whenever we want to take our children out for a walk, we should put them on mask and also put ourselves on mask. Stay safe. Komesha corona.
Hi guys, my name is Maureen Dinda, and amidst this coronavirus pandemic, I'd like to urge everyone, including people with disabilities, to always wear masks in public and to maintain social distancing and use of sanitizers. To the people with albinism, I'd like to tell you that use of sanitizers has no effect or harm on your skin, so don't get afraid. Stay at home, stay safe. Komesha corona.
Niaje watu wangu wa nguvu hapa, mimi naitwa Deno. Ningependa kuwashow kwamba corona si mzaha. Corona iko bana. Corona iko kwa neighborhood. Manze jaribu kaa home. Na kama iwezekani lazima utoke nje kama mimi. Make sure uko kwa mask. Make sure unawea hiyo mask kila mahali. Kwanza sana ukiwa in a public place. Make sure uko kwa mask vizuri sana. Na kama unatumia guide kama mimi, make sure umemhold hapa kwa shoulder, kwa sababu huwezi mhold kwa elbow, kwa sababu hapo ndipo tunatumia ku sneeze. Sasa make sure that ume stay safe, make sure that ume sanitize. Corona ni real manze, choose clean.
Tuepuke makundi, sura sishiki misi na budi, tusisambaze hivi virusi.
Hello friends, my name is Ben. I'd like to urge my friends, especially the deaf community, that we follow the guidelines given by the government in these times of corona. Don't forget, wash your hands with clean running water. Also, use masks when in public. If you don't have water, make sure you sanitize your hands. Also, keep social distance. Together, we can win corona. Stay safe, stay at home.
Epuka corona. Sanitize, osha vizuri mikono yako. Epuka corona. Quarantine and it's gonna be alright. Epuka corona.
Today marks a great day for me, for us in Pan-African Forum UK Limited. Stand above the threats, intimidation, blackmailing that people receive so as not to speak about what is happening in Somalia. The matter of the Somali link or Somalia link with Qatar must be discussed openly by countries that are taking part in Somalia. The pacification of Somalia, for Somalia to become a state again, there is a need for cooperation. The cooperation to bring about peace is more important than the cooperation of countries that are seeking minerals, diamonds, gold, oil, skins, animals, and the rest from Somalia. My organization does not have a share, neither is it seeking to get anything, but to have Somalia and to protect the Ugandan and the Kenyan troops, plus Burundian troops that have gone to do a good job in Somalia. Every time we hear reports of money laundering, some people think it is difficult to find out who has laundered which money, where and how. For us in Pan-African Forum UK Limited, we have networks that have exposed even the ICC before, and we have brought it to its knees for this type of money laundering. Qatar has become the main funder of terrorism in the world. We can now safely agree and safely agree to the people, the countries, especially those countries like Saudi Arabia that said Qatar is a terrorist organization. It's not a country. Qatar is funding terrorist activities, coming in as economic saviors of some countries in Africa, while they are sponsoring terror groups that are expanding on the coastal line of the Indian Ocean up to Mozambique. It is therefore my duty as an African and us as Africans to point out these mistakes such that the people can take these mistakes, correct them, and point out to Qatar to stop funding terror activities. 2, it is also very important for the people of Kenya to know that Al-Shabaab, Eritrea, Ethiopia are trading out a deal that will leave Kenya and Uganda in a mess. It is important that Farimajo should not lie to you that he is not having these deals or these negotiations are not taking place. We have evidence, concrete in black and white, of these meetings that are taking place on a daily basis in one of the capitals of the world called Doha and Asmara. These meetings have been taking place and they are taking place, and that is why the United Nations Security Council failed to condemn Al-Shabaab as a terrorist group. One would wonder, why condemn the Taliban? Why condemn Boko Haram? But he failed to condemn Al-Shabaab, which has killed us Kenyans, killed us Ugandans, killed Somalis in hundreds and hundreds. Why? 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 Can a government of Farimajo guarantee our peace? The shooting down of a plane commandeered by Ethiopians who are guarding the ground at the flower, who were told the plane had a humanitarian agency, is very dangerous. There is no diplomacy here. The truth must prevail. Ethiopia should stop engaging itself in activities that are going to create hegemony of the world's hegemony in the region. Thank you very much. God bless all of you. God bless Africa. God bless the Pearl of Africa. God bless Kenya. Keep our troops in Kismayo. Give them strength. Our troops in Mogadishu. Give them strength. We shall tomorrow or days to come talk to the owner of the plane that was brought down. We are going to expose all this. We have evidence. It's not local, it is inside. We know what happens and we know what is taking place. Farimajo, Hassan Harriet have become axes of evil. Thank you. Welcome to Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting all the way from the political command center of Punchline Africa Television in Nairobi, the Republic of Kenya. Good afternoon, viewers in Africa, the Pan-Africans, those in Libya, those in Cameroon, Biafra, South Sudan, Mogadishu, those suffering in DRC Congo, in Mozambique, the war ranger zone in northern part of Mozambique. Thank you very much for watching. This show is Africa Showdown. And with Africa Showdown, we have guests today. One of the most vocal and sanctioned man, a man who does not take it. He has not taken anything lying down. We have struggled together with Dr. Mataraire from Zimbabwe. Is stationed in South Africa, but we have struggled together to get sanctions out of Zimbabwe, from the American hegemony. Welcome to the show, all of you. Let me introduce one by one, beginning with our guest. Our guest is a Pan-African, a writer, a creative writer, a broadcaster. You will test his sound yourselves. He's above all a Zimbabwean who has struggled, who has taken one step forward to tell the Americans enough is enough. Let sanctions come down. Together we have worked on programs on Zimbabwe. Today I brought him, I said, please, let me drag you out of your other work and be with us. Good afternoon, Dr. Mataraire.
Good afternoon. It's Rutendo Matinyarare.
Yes, let me use the word Rutendo. You know, I have a very serious significance with the Rutendo. Yes. My daughter, one of them is called Rutendo. I will tell you offline. So don't worry about that. But good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us from Johannesburg, where you are, and the studio should show where you are on the screen so that they know you are in Johannesburg. And the next in our headquarters, in Punchline headquarters, because of COVID-19, we have now done the poorest World Health Organization is telling us to do, which should have told us last year when this COVID-19 arrived in Wuhan and then spread it to us. Miriam Ogutu is our senior anchor our senior presenter, researcher, Miriam Ogutu. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and a very good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to our guests, and good afternoon to our viewers across Africa today.
Thank you very much. Next is our investigative journalist. You can see he's wearing Colombo. He's a man who does investigations, and he is one of us. Is Daniel Wesonga. Good afternoon, Daniel.
Good afternoon, Dr. Matsanga, Dr. Rutendo, Miriam, and our esteemed viewers here in Kenya and across the continent.
Thank you very much. Let's kickstart. We are going to kickstart with Miriam giving us the figures of the numbers, especially in South Africa, Zimbabwe, add them on Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, Tanzania, which has not given its figures. We don't know what bombshell will be coming from somewhere there. Whether Tanzania has taken a right route, but Dr. Rutendo will tell us something. For us in East Africa, we have talked and begged and begged. Some of us are friends of Dr. Magufuli. We have made telephone calls to this president, but he says no. There is no COVID-19 here. So, please, Miriam, give us the shockers of the figures.
All right. A very good morning. Good afternoon to our viewers. So the latest in Kenya right now, the figure stands at 3,457 cases that have been reported so far. 100 people have died. Recoveries stands at 1,221. Uganda confirmed cases is 696. Recoveries is 240. And Zimbabwe confirmed cases right now stands at 356. 4 people have died. Recoveries right now in Zimbabwe is at 54. And we go to South Sudan, where the figures also have gone up at 1,693. 27 people have died. Recoveries right now is at 49. And then we go cross over to South Africa, the leading country here in Africa in terms of the number of infections, which right now is at 65,736. 1,423 people have died, while 36,850 others have recovered. Nigeria, 15,682. 407 people have died. 5,101 have recovered. And I will not look through all of that list, but I'd like for us to look at the total number of infections in Africa as they stand right now at 233,030, and the number of deaths in the continent is at 6,309, and recoveries so far that have been made in Africa is at 107,152. So, Doctor, that's where we stand this afternoon from across the continent.
Okay, thank you very much. Give us the views. Give us the views of South Africa. And what is the figure of South Africa?
South Africa right now is over 65,000. They're actually closer to 66,000. Perhaps they will meet that threshold by the end of today. Right now is at 65,736. 1,423 people have died. Recoveries is over 36,000, which is closer to 37,000 there.
Okay. Dr. Rutendo, please. You are in South Africa yourself. Can you now, from Johannesburg, tell us exactly what is going on in this place? The figure is worrying. It's really worrying. 65,000 is a huge figure. What has gone wrong?
I think let me just first of all just amend something in your speech. I am not a doctor. I don't want those people that have worked hard for their PhDs to then have me stealing their accolades.
Okay, thank you very much. We shall call you Comrade Rutendo.
Yes.
I'll just Mr. Rutendo.
Just Rutendo.
Okay.
Mr. Rutendo, no, Comrade Rutendo.
Okay.
We are fighters. Okay, thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Right. I don't really want to delve too much into commenting about COVID because I'm not an expert in the arena and I don't really have a lot of information on this issue of COVID. However, what I know is that the infections are actually much higher than the numbers that I've heard you saying here, where they're sitting at above 220,000 infections in South Africa. And I think that the deaths have surpassed 2,000, but I would need confirmation on that. But the statistics I saw were saying 220,000 have been infected and over 1,900 had died when I last had a look at the statistics. So maybe there's a discrepancy in the statistics that we have. Now, majority of infections are found in a place called Western Cape. And if you understand Western Cape, it is currently the sanctuary of white South Africans. Most white South Africans are running to Western Cape, and Western Cape is where the DA, which is a white party, a predominantly white party, a previous apartheid era party, currently has its biggest constituents. So therefore, a lot of the people that have been infected in that particular area are white citizens that were traveling during the time that COVID started across the world, and they are the most infected, and they seem to be the ones that are suffering the most. So Western Cape has the highest statistics, and then I think it's followed by then Johannesburg and KZN and Eastern Cape.
I think that when you look at Cairo, Alexandria, Lagos, and Accra, look at those coasts, Kinshasa. If you come back to Rwanda, I think there is something, Djibouti, there's something very, either the ships came in with this thing, the seamen are coming. We are lucky in Kenya, Mombasa, we took quite a lot of drastic steps that the government took quick steps. But if you look at the coastal towns around Africa, Tunisia, Tunis, Algeria, Rabat in Morocco, these are they have the highest figure. So your analysis, Comrade Rutendo, is correct, but that people who came in later, they arrived, the planes came in. There is something worrying me. Maybe you are also worried like I am. Ethiopian Airlines has started distributing again. Are we Africans in for money? We like money more than our lives. The Ethiopian Airline is already taken out. It is distributing people again. You remember, Ethiopian Airline remained one of the airlines carrying people from Europe who are already infected and delivered them to African states. You see, today, Ethiopia, I don't know whether Kenya will allow this, that they should land here again. They have already started their operations, and they are carrying again people without real measures. When this second wave comes, I think, Miriam, we shall not be ourselves. Me, you see, I'm more worried as a man who grew up in Tanzania, Rutendo. The Tanzanians, I don't know what is happening there. For 2 months now, we have not got any update. Whether people are dying, whether they are alive, whether there's COVID or no COVID, but the reports coming from there don't indicate a very good situation. Mr. Magufuli has opened the churches, he has opened the offices, he's opened the discourse, he's opened everything. People are doing the things they are doing. I don't know. What is your comment, Daniel?
Yes, I think it is quite unfortunate that the Tanzanians disregarded the reality about COVID-19. And yesterday on social media, I happened to see a video of so many Tanzanians clapping, and they carried a coffin branded "Rest in Peace, Corona." So it's a perception in that country that this virus or disease is not among us, which is quite unfortunate. And of course, I have contacts in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. I've talked to people in Zanzibar, and the notion there, of course, created by the government through the president, is that Corona is not in Tanzania. But in reality, we do have the disease among the people of Tanzania, and that's why perhaps in their national budget, they gave so many billions of shillings to combat Corona. So you cannot be allocating billions when this disease is not among the people. I think it's a very wrong move, And perhaps we are looking at a very precarious situation in the coming days. And Tanzania might just be another country in Africa where Corona will overwhelm so many people and take away so many lives. On the topic where Rutendo talked about, I think I tend to agree with Dr. Rutendo and you also, Dr. Mzanga.
Comrade Rutendo. Dr. Rutendo, yes.
About that. So I tend to agree with you. These cases were mainly transferred to Africa through people who are moving in after other countries in Europe, Asia, and America had recorded the positive cases. And you remember back here in Kenya, the KPA, Kenya Ports Authority, became a hotspot. Would it have not been for the government's drastic measures to lock up Mombasa County, and we'd be having a very serious situation here. So, and also when you look at the countries like Uganda, where President Museveni took early measures to lock up the country, and he was very categorical, saying that any Ugandan who is outside the country will not be allowed to jet back into the country, just to ensure that the numbers are maintained low. So that is my perspective.
Thank you very much. Comrade Rutendo, before we leave the COVID and Miriam brings in the great news in Kenya, and also you might have some headlines from Johannesburg, where you might have picked a paper, newspaper, and anything in the job back in South Africa. Zimbabwe, our great, beautiful country, the one every African would like to see come out of this. How have they handled this COVID-19?
Well, with Zimbabwe, the situation is, it seems a bit better with the statistics that we're seeing. And I would assume that one of the major reasons that we see those statistics is that we did not have a lot of inbound traffic into Zimbabwe that would have caused the situation to go out of control. I also believe that Zimbabwe also tried to take measures to quarantine and stop infections from rising. There are, however, some people who believe that maybe the statistics are not being recorded properly, maybe the numbers are not being collated properly, but we haven't seen a sufficient enough crisis for us to believe that COVID is causing a crisis in Zimbabwe. However, I'd like to also comment about this issue in Tanzania. Tanzania and Ethiopia, this Ethiopian Airlines continuing to fly, is symptomatic of the problem of Africans ever since Europeans came to Africa and began to conquer Africa. Africans have always believed material gain from Europe is the only way for us to progress. The problem with that perspective is that when they came here to take slaves, we sold slaves to them because we wanted money. Some people in power wanted to benefit from selling their own people into slavery. But we realized that it did not profit us, because at the end of the day, when we had finished enslaving our own people, we first of all didn't make money, and secondly, we opened up the continent to be enslaved and people to be enslaved on the continent through colonialism because of our weakness for money. And now we are opening up for airlines to fly throughout Africa, knowing very well the history that in Congo, what caused the genocide during Leopold, it's not necessarily the murder of Congolese people by Leopold, but it was because of the infection of the Congolese people with things like the flu, smallpox, and European flus that killed the people more because of us opening up to these Muzungus who we seem to idolize, even though they have an intention to destroy us. So now we've got this COVID. This COVID has got opened up the conversation about vaccination, universal vaccination. And there is talk that this vaccination, they wanted to start in Africa. But Africa is the place with the least number of infections. And instead of us continuing to implement strategies to ensure that we don't get infected, number one. Number two, to implement strategies to research about this disease, to find out how it's working, to find out if it is real, and to find out how it infects people. We're now opening up ourselves to be infected at the rates they want us to be infected by, so that they can bring their vaccines here the same way that they brought antiretrovirals and HIV and Ebola to us. And it's time that African leaders start to understand that there is something called biological warfare. There is biological warfare that has been taking place ever since colonization started, ever since the American Indians were eliminated for their continent to be taken. And Africans must understand that the same strategy has been attempted on the continent. So it is important for us to protect ourselves, to start finding and researching to create our own medicines and to close ourselves from the outside world until we are sure about what is happening. So this carelessness for commerce by the Ethiopian Airlines, the carelessness of Magufuli, who keeps talking about Christianity and healing of people, that is problematic.
You know why I'm laughing, Dr. Comrade Ruten. You have so many supporters in East Africa because not everybody is amused with this question of Dr. Pombe Magufuli talking of Christianity, talking of this, talking of this. In fact, Miriam agrees with you 100%. And me, because I trained up down in Tanzania, I've been very, very, okay, let's leave him. But
Doctor,
you have hit the point.
Doctor, yes, and there's something else. Yes. Yes, Mr. Rutendo mentioned something there about Africa. Of course, from Dr. what you say, that Ethiopia Airlines is now seeking to start, its travels across the world and, might not be the right time. And also, Mr. Rutendo, there you said that Africa should continue closing itself because of obvious risks that is coming up due to COVID-19. But can the economy, because we know the economy of Africa is dependent on these other factors from outside there, can we afford really to close by ourselves here longer than we already have? Can our economy really take that?
I think let's first of all fix the lexicon. Africa is not dependent on the outside world because the greatest African empires and the most successful period of Africa was when we were closed away from those very same people. The moment we opened up to globalization on Western terms, Africa was impoverished. So it is very important for us to stress that Africa is not dependent on the global economy. The global economy, the Western economy, the Eastern economy is the one that is dependent on Africa. So while we are closed like this is the time that we must get our act in order. Start opening up trade on the African continent. Start ensuring that Kenyan produce is getting to Zimbabwe, is getting to South Africa, is getting to Nigeria, and making sure that Nigerian produce, Nigerian cars, Innocent, is making its way to Southern Africa. Tatanka, or that car that we have in Ghana, is making its way in through the African continent. And we are trading on the African continent and not opening up to the West, who actually benefit from asymmetric trade and taking value out of Africa much more than Africa benefits. So this is the time to solidify this continental trade agreement and education and travel and tourism on the continent before we open up to the people who are carrying this COVID and bringing it onto the African continent.
And that will be, but as we know, as it is right now, Africa has been very disunited, and I think it is our disunity that allows other people to come in and take advantage. And we know the continent has been fighting, a few countries have been fighting to have this free trade zone in Africa that last year, and it has not really materialized. So if we had that in place, something like the European Union economic bloc, then that will work. But we know Africa, we've not, the idea of unity has been very elusive. So that works in our disadvantage. And that's why, we are so, as much as we're not very dependent, but the global globalization has forced us to be part of this big village, and now we have to trade like that, and also the red tapes that exist in different African countries that have made it impossible. And also you are in South Africa last year, we saw the xenophobia, and a lot of African businesses and all that from other African countries were attacked, and other Africans were killed in South Africa. So those are things that we have, unfortunately, to deal with, for us to really look inward and see how is it from this COVID-19 can we emerge to be dependent on our own selves, to be independent, and also to strengthen our own economies in Africa. But I think we still have a lot of work to do as individual countries and also as a continent entirely. I don't know what you have to say to that.
Okay, thank you very much, Miriam, for those points, and thank you very much, Comrade Rutendo. You've raised very serious questions, and our viewers, this is exactly, there are many on the chat. those who can contribute and write something. Or if you want to call in, you call on, we shall put you on the conference call, 7 of you, even 10 of you. Call in on +254 795 638 145. The show is Showdown Africa. Thank you. And the points that both of you have raised, especially Rutendo has brought, we are not dependent on those guys. They are dependent on us. They are actually plotting how they are coming to recolonize this country.
They are here. They're not planning. They're already here,
They are
Doctor.
here.
Yes.
If you look at the recolonization strategy that is taking place, people are already saying, bring the vaccine. Who are the people singing for the vaccine? Who are the people saying, bring that vaccine? Is it George Soros? Is it Bill Gates? Is it Ramaphosa? Yes, it is Kofi Annan Foundation. Is it Jeffrey Smith? These are the people who are advocating. That's why you see them singling out the African Development Bank, an African from Nigeria. You have seen that guy has been singled out for for giving loans to people, to Africans to develop. America has singled him out with sanctions. But America has not singled out Five Masiyiwa, the guy who is doing the bidding for vaccines. I'm always straightforward. I'm not like these lecturers who go around Africa lecturing. No, I hit the point. Strive Masiyiwa is more dangerous than even the Kofi Annan Foundation itself. Because he has money, he can't help even his own country. He can't help Zimbabwe. Then he goes around wearing suits around Africa that he can help. I have never, whenever I find him in Kempinski in Nairobi, I tell him off, and I've always told him, I will die a man who tells people off. If you kill me, kill me. But I cannot sit and share coffee with you when you undermine your own country called Zimbabwe. You can't give them a loan, yet your money is stashed in Europe. It is making interest rates in Europe, in American banks. Econet is making quite a lot of interest. You tell me what is going on. We have a problem here. And we cannot go on sitting, Africa. Let's tell these guys, Strive Masiyiwa is collecting money in liquid in Kampala, in Kenya. And he can't even help Zimbabwe. He wants to pay those nurses to strike. Instead of paying them or giving the government money, loaning the government. And then he says, I'm going to pay part of the nurses' salary.
Yeah, for 6 months.
Africa, we have a problem. We have that problem. We are not dependent. We have the resources. Miriam, if you look at the amount, and you, my panel, on my panel, if you look at the amount of money Africans, the white multinational companies take out of Africa, compared to an amount that President's Bank, which one is more? When they froze the account of the late President Mugabe, I have the paper with me in my house in London. I'm one of those who went to collect the file. He had only $10,000 after 20 years of independence. So what wrong did he do? He had nothing there. There was no money. There was no money. Now they were freezing a zero account. There was no money in it. Almost people laughed. Why did you freeze a man who had 10? Actually, it was 9,000 something cents of pounds on Mugabe's account. That's how a leader is. We lost a leader. We have lost a leader in Africa. And we want such leaders in Africa. But when you look at the money that is being taken out, my dear brothers and sisters, it is a huge amount of money. But because of time, we shall bring Comrade Rutendo again to discuss this, because let's keep it to the sanction. Your section is about to come. We want to run quickly so that you can go back to your other activities. Miriam, bring us up to date with the news papers in Nairobi. The Standard and the Nation. The Nation and the Standard. Two of them are here. I hope you have copies.
I do have my copies here, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Can I go through them quickly? Or?
It's okay.
Okay, or you go. Take it.
Okay.
Take it from there.
So the Sunday Standard, the front page is there. Ruto allies surprise BBI card, and down there they're saying fresh clash as reality of a looming referendum downs on DP's backers. They're pushing a hard bargain, creation of a legal window for a BBI alternative bill, but Uhuru's allies cite bad faith and vow to crush it. Who will have the last laugh? So from what I'm gathering from this headline, Doctor, is that DP's side or allies are plotting for an alternative BBI bill. Is that Punguza Zigo, or what is that?
You know what? Last week, for Mr. Rutendo, who is in Johannesburg, Kenyan politics is very interesting. The problem of Africa is deputy presidents overthrowing their presidents. You have seen it in several countries. In Malawi, we have a tussle within the deputy and the president. Several places, Kapwepwe and Kaunda, Simon Marakela and the Tanzanian first president, Julius Nyerere. You saw that what happened in that struggle. We have, where else in Africa, several places where deputies have turned up to be very different from the president. So here in Kenya, we have a mess, which I call cliffhanger politics. Under COVID is cliffhanger. People are discussing how to position Rome when Sicily is burning. If you have read the book, The Prince, you will know what I'm talking about, which you have done several times and over and over and over, because you're a very good literature man. So look at all these things. We are in chaos. People are thinking of positions of 2022. What do we do here? I don't know. I have liked the way Zimbabweans are not thinking of 2023. They are thinking of survival. But in Kenya, some people are even plotting openly after amassing wealth, picking wealth from the state. They have become very radical. They are using their money to disorganize the president. That is the situation there on the headline you have just seen. Your comments, sir.
Yeah, the problem that we've got in Africa, as long as we are using a Western democratic system of politics, which is basically a hypocrisy, we are never going to be able to change anything in Africa. Our governance system that is based on people electing the most popular person, our government system that encourages contestation instead of unity, is exactly opposed to African culture, which means that it is something that is un-African, and therefore in a democratic system where African systems or what serves Africans is supposed to be operating, we are utilizing a minority system, a system of our colonizer to govern ourselves. It doesn't make sense. And that's why when people have asked me, when are you going to participate in politics? I tell them I can't participate in something that goes against our cultural values and cultural customs. And that is why we always have Westerners telling us what democracy is. Westerners throwing in our faces people like Paul Kagame, who is actually a tyrant. Paul Kagame, who is causing the death of millions of Congolese people, attacking Congolese people so that he can be able to provide basic amenities for his own people, while compromising the amenities of another people on the continent, is a threat to African democracy. And that is why when we have the talk of African unity under a man like Paul Kagame, who was trained, by the way, in Fort Leavenworth, a military school, to serve American interests, we've got a problem. Because he's no different from Blas Compaoré, who took away Sankara because he was given commands by his trainers of the French legionnaires to remove an African leader who is advancing an African agenda, because Blaise was trained to advance a Western agenda. This is the same thing with our friend Paul Kagame. He is a Trojan horse. He is an assassin for the Americans. That man is a danger to Africa, and has been put upon us through a democratic system of politics that does not work. Then I just want to quickly go back to the issue of Strive Masiwa. Strive Masiwa was a product of Robert Mugabe. Robert Mugabe's indigenization policy that said that when the Zimbabwean Stock Exchange was the second biggest stock exchange in Africa, he said that all this wealth that is in this stock exchange is based on our resources, our labor, and exploitation of our people during colonialism. So in 1997, after 17 years of independence, in which that stock exchange was grown to be the second biggest in Africa, he started to say it's time to transfer this wealth on this stock exchange to Zimbabweans. That is the very first time that he started clashing with these Democrats, clashing with the Americans, clashing with the British, because they realized that Mugabe had the blueprint and the economic strategy that is not written in any economics textbook to start taking the wealth of Africans to put that wealth into African hands. And that is when we started seeing sanctions being designed. Now, Mugabe, some people said, overstayed his welcome, according to the principles of democracy. According to us as Zimbabweans who understood the agenda of decolonization and the agenda of taking Africa forward, we believe that Mugabe should have ruled for as long as he needed to rule in order to finish his work of transferring power, transferring the economy, and emancipating the African mind to understand how we build true African economies by giving Africans control of their resources. Mugabe also went to use his army to fight imperialism in Mozambique, where the apartheid government was destabilizing, and in Congo, where the apartheid government, on behalf of their Western proxies, together with Paul Kagame, were busy destabilizing Congo for Western companies to continue to pillage, to remove Kabila, who was beginning to say, you know what, I want these resources to be in the hands of my people. And when I say Kabila, I'm talking about Laurent Kabila, who actually had an agenda and a dream to ensure that Congolese people take part in the exploitation of the resources of their country to grow. But the West did not like that. Kagame did not like that. I'm afraid to say Museveni did not like that as well. And we need to ensure that we stop.
Don't be afraid. This is a Pan-African station.
Yes.
We have no regrets. We have no excuse. We have no apologies.
And we take no prisoners. Yes, we take no prisoners here.
I want to welcome Miriam before you continue. I want to welcome Professor Onyari. If Professor Onyari could sit so that we can see you. Professor Onyari is a conflict resolution expert, one of the few African celebrities for peace. He looks for peace around Africa. And then I want also to cross over to Benjamin, who is, I think, is in one of the countries in the Far East, or if I'm not mistaken, who is in Bangkok, who is waiting for the situation in Nigeria, but is listening. Is waiting. You know, Biafra, we are coming to that hot season. Let's do what we call house cleaning at the moment and remove a few things out on Kenya. Professor Nyali, before I come to come to Daniel. Professor Nyali, cut in short, 1 minute. Judiciary versus President Uhuru. How can we heal the rift? That's it. Our Chief Justice has become stubborn. He speaks at the president, not with the president. He belittles the president. He's trying to cause a regime change, which Rutendo is talking about. And today I've found somebody whom I want to ask a question. And that's Rutendo. Think about it. Does Africa need elections? Then Professor Nyali hit it. There you are, get it. Tell us the rift between Maraga and Uhuru Kenyatta. How do we solve it? One of them has to grieve, and not the president, but Maraga. the president is democratically elected and is the CEO of the country. The Chief Justice enters into office through a competitive interview. The person who has got the mandate of Kenyans is the President of the Republic of Kenya and is none other than President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. As I said yesterday, Maraga, the Chief Justice, only having 1 year to leave the office. It is either he works very closely with the president or he is shipped out. I recommend that he goes for a retirement like Willy Mutunga did, so that he can leave the president to implement his legacy and the Big Four agenda. And that's my position. In fact, if it was kind of improvement, that is a kind of insubordination. The people of Kenya did not elect the Chief Justice, they elected the president. And should anything go wrong, be it in the judiciary, be it in the parliament, the person who is answering the people of Kenya is the president. So the Chief Justice, I think his time is up. And, since they ruled the case in 2017 about the presidential election, sometimes it seems some boss fighting him. It's high time he realized that he did a mistake. We have corrected and we have moved on. It is time for us to work 54519 and serve Kenyans and move forward as a country. That's my position. Thank you. Benjamin. Mr. Benjamin, he doesn't want to show his face. Any comments? We have somebody.
Hello?
Yes, can you make your comments?
Okay, sorry, my camera have a little fault. That's why you cannot see my face.
Okay, thank you.
I've been listening.
You can make your comments.
Yes, I've been listening to so many comments from Rutendo, from Chan, and everybody who have been contributing in this topic. I believe that we all have the same problem in Africa, like from leadership, from whatever is happening, or from the neocolonialism that is happening in Africa today. I think we all blame ourselves, because basically, if all of us unite together, we can fight all these things. Basically, from what Ritendo have talked about what we have in Africa, at least we can use this to fight for our right, or a kind of have a stand, or having a kind of economic bloc like in ASEAN, like in Europe and North America. So I believe and I stand and support whatever we are saying here. I think we are on the same page as well.
Thank you very much. Let's cross over to Bangkok. Our man in Bangkok, Ben.
Okay. In Bangkok today.
Not Bangkok. You are Ben from Bangkok. General Ben is in Bangkok, right?
Yes, I'm in Bangkok.
Bangkok. Now we finished with you. Let's cross over to, there's another gentleman on the top of the camera, our guest. How are you, sir? How are you? Okay, let's move on. Miriam, bring us to date with another newspaper which has got this headline.
All right, yeah, that should be the Sunday Nation here, and it says there the main headline: Raila in night meeting with Anne Waiguru, continues to say down there, an evening appointment with the ODM leader, a stealth Salvation Crusade by Jubilee members of Parliament, and calls for party stalwarts and hangers on to save her. It seems this empress of Kirinyaga politics is going nowhere.
First of all, for those Rutendo and who are not in Kenya, and Benjamin who is in Bangkok, as in Kenya we are used to this. I have decided not to make any comment, Miriam, on this issue. corruption is a very bad issue, and I've left it to the Kenyans themselves.
Yes.
Let it play. Let those who have accused her go in the Senate, place their case. Believe me or not.
And just, Doctor, the news just getting to us here right now, the headline that we just read, Mr. Honorable Raila Odinga, the leader of opposition here in Kenya, has come out and said that the story on the front pages of the Daily Nation is fake. He did not have a night meeting with Anne Waiguru, as the Sunday Nation has been alluding to, or has alluded to today there on the headline. So Raila Odinga has come out and said, no, that meeting never happened. So that is the latest. I just received that.
So you see, that's exactly what I have been telling people in this world. One of the things that kills Africa are lies from newspapers that come from the Western hegemony again. I agree with Ritendo that we have copied everything that has brought us the chaos, the leprosy that we see on this continent. Editors don't investigate stories. That's why I like the television here. I speak frankly with my facts in my hand. If you say you did not meet, I show you the video that you had a meeting. But now a horror newspaper called the Daily Nation is malicing people before they reach the Senate for any hearing. So these are some of the stories that we don't want to waste our time. We want to move on to very crucial matters of Africa. And with Songa, you have to bear with us that we are running, time is also running, and we have guests. We have several from Bangkok, several guests from South Africa. So this one now, which I'm opening second session, it is, if you don't jump in, you will be taken out yourself. So jump in.
But Doctor, before he jumps in here, there was some, Mr. Rutendo spoke there earlier, and he gave out a lot of very interesting points there, and I was listening there, and of course he mentioned how Africa, we absolutely borrowed 100% the democracy of the West. We implemented here in Africa. It has not been working very well for us because it does not seem to be fitting the local settings in the different African countries, and the way the leadership that we've been having in this continent, and the manner in which they choose to pick on democracy. They sort of cherry pick, but also who's to say what is the yardstick of a good democracy, because a lot of this we've borrowed from the West. And you perhaps suggest that we should find ways to find means of governance that perhaps used to exist before the white man came, and we used to rule ourselves. So I don't know, in the current 21st century, Mr. Rutendo, what would you suggest? Because democracy is here with us. Can we get rid of it really right now?
What the democracy? Before Rutendo,
what do we have?
Yes. Before Rutendo, what democracy do we have here?
Yes. Can we go back?
The winner takes all, and then we fight.
It gets us into a lot of troubles, But the South African one is working, so maybe I don't know. The South African democracy, is it working? We can borrow.
All right. Let me answer that question.
Yes.
Nowhere in the world is there democracy, because we hear of the existence of democracy. It is supposed to be the people or the publicus that is leading the country. That is not what is happening. Whether you go to America, you go to France itself, democracy is supposed to have started. Napoleon became a tyrant utilizing the very same system. And so it does not make sense that people want to follow a system that didn't even work in the country where it was decided. When you go to America, they tell you that the people are governing because they can elect officials. But the truth of the matter is, who are they electing? Do they even have the choice of electing the leaders that they want, or they only have a choice of electing the leaders that are put in front of them by those that pay those leaders to be able to campaign, and those that get publicity on television and what we call this manufactured consent of so-called democracy? Then you've got the Electoral College in America determining at the end of the day, after an election, who wins by not even counting the majority of the votes, but some complex system that elects a leader that is more suitable or suitable for the electoral college. You come to South Africa, there's no democracy in South Africa. South Africa has maintained apartheid and put black faces to preside over this apartheid. There's still a division of who controls wealth, who controls land, who even controls the courts. Then when you look at this democracy, like what you're seeing in Kenya right now, where you've got Maraga starting to criticize a president, and yet he's supposed to be a chief justice who is presiding over an arm of the democratic system in a separation of powers. He is now contesting with the president, contesting with the executive to rule the country. So basically what we're having is that we've got a chief justice that now wants to take over power from the president of the nation, and yet he is supposed to be a safeguard of the executive instead of a competitor to the executive. Mm-hmm. Here in South Africa, you realize that the opposition, the apartheid government, the whites that were responsible for apartheid are ruling this country via the courts. They use the courts to basically undercut decisions that are made by parliament, undercut decisions that are made by the president, and utilizing judges who a lot of them are still part and parcel of the apartheid system, enforcing precedents and case law that was made during apartheid by a minority, utilizing a Roman Dutch law legal system that is not made for Africans, that was made to oppress Africans. This Roman Dutch law system is then accompanied by this thing we call international law, of laws that are made by Europeans in the absence of Africans. So now this is not democracy. And so now when we say we want to redress these issues, to bring an African system of control, is we are saying we recognize the hypocrisy of the so-called democracy, that we have a minority and a few rich people running government. We don't want that. We don't want this thing that they are imposing on us that says that the majority are electing leadership when the majority are not electing leadership and when the majority do not actually have power. We want a system like the ones that used to be used in Africa, a consensus-based system where the people were governed by their own decisions and consensus together with so-called leadership that sat in a committee or council that made decisions unanimously and in consensus, rather than making decisions by a vote that is based on serving interests of those that have power that is sitting behind those people that are sitting there. And one of the ways for us to do that is we need to eliminate this winner-takes-all system of capitalism that was actually the reason why democracy was imposed on us, where the people with money always have a say. And this can be done by doing away with capitalism and going back to communalism, where the resources of a nation were owned in custodianship by a leadership for the nation rather than for individuals. That is the only way we can start to redress this. And if we don't do that, you're going to realize that Africa will always struggle because the West will always have more money, and that more money will always be used to influence leadership and their decisions of how African resources are distributed, which will continue to leave us subjugated because our leaders will make decisions to give our resources to those who pay them, which is the banks overseas and the Europeans overseas, who also give us the goods and services that our leaders love so much, the beautiful cars, the expensive watches, the expensive suits. We need to eliminate that culture because that is what is destroying Africa, and come up with a system where we have our interests taken care of by a committee of leadership that is in consensus with the majority.
Yes. And
may I chip in something on democracy as well?
All right, go ahead, Professor Nyari, and then Daniel will come after.
Democracy is dictatorship of the majority. I want to respectively differ with Lutendo that it is not the best system of governance, but there is nothing which comes near to that democracy if it is well guided. To me, I am persuaded that Africa, we should have negotiated democracy, just the way Lutendo is trying to put across, because if we don't negotiate for this democracy, even the smaller people, the smaller population, the smaller tribe, they must have a share on what kind of governance they want. But if we want to go a winner take it all, it will always be controlled from the West, and Africa will not have leaders. That is the problem with democracy. It's like a terminal disease. You have to live with it and you die with it. There is no another system which can replace democracy if it is well guarded. And if I use Kenyan case as a case study, when we came up with a new constitution, we are having 47 counties. There are some counties where we are having predominant people, like for the case of Migori, the Kurias and the Ruos. The Ruos are the majority. But what they have been doing, they have been negotiating democracy and say, you can have this, and this one can be able to take Africa forward instead of leaving to the majority who can take everything, and the minorities may not have a say. In fact, the next topic we are going to go to Biafra, that is what is happening, that the majority of the people in Nigeria, the Hausa and the Yoruba, they have taken it all, and the people from the Biafra, they have seen that they cannot make it. That's why they are asking for the independent state. So negotiated democracy tender may be the way to go.
All right.
Rather than that kind of pure democracy.
Before Wesonga. Wesonga come in first. Please, can I put something that can I add?
Yes, Mr. So my point is
let the guest, Wesonga, let the guest, Benjamin.
Okay, in terms of democracy, I think I wouldn't totally disagree with my brother that just spoken, because I think democracy is the best system of government we can ever practice all over the world. But in this 21st century, I believe that we all have to put our hands together, like I said before. It's all about the majority rules. So democracy, which guarantees the majority rules and the minority rights. But in Africa, we lack a kind of leadership qualities that when we vote in someone that we want him to represent us, he might go there to do one or two things in his own pocket, not what the populations want. But when we say that democracy is not part and parcel of Africa, I think that's very, very wrong, because I believe in our own system, judging from Biafra or eastern part of Nigeria, where I come from, I believe we practice pure democracy, because there's what we call Umunna. In a times whereby we select someone that will lead, or we select someone that will handle a project, it will be a kind of unanimous decision whereby everybody will come out and vote in for whoever we want to represent us. But in today's society, or in today's African context of democracy, I believe that most people who are eager, or people who are the elites in the society, have lost trust in the political system of African nations. So I believe this is why we are seeing the influence of the West in Africa so much, that we don't trust the democratic system in Africa. So I believe if we can do away with the influence, and those who are supposed to be in the political space of Africa join politics, then be able to come out and say that I am going into politics, because most of them believe that when they go into politics, it's a dirty game, or when people say, I believe in this, I believe in that, most of the people will believe, okay, do you have money to campaign for your political position? So let's look beyond money and the economic attached to politics. Let's look at the qualities or the leadership style of somebody who is coming out to lead us. That's just my point.
All right, Benjamin there, thank you so much. And I'm meant to understand that one of our guests there, Rutendo, might be leaving us early. So I want us to look at Zimbabwe is one of the topics that we're having here today. And we know Zimbabwe has been affected so much, the economy of the country and how things are happening in that country has been affected so much by the sanctions that have been imposed in Zimbabwe. And we saw earlier this year the United States renew some of these sanctions upon Zimbabwe. And I know, Rutendo, this is something that is very close to your heart. Matter of fact, you are a founder of Zimbabwe's Unite Against the U.S. War Sanctions. So you believe these sanctions on Zimbabwe are war sanctions. Why do you call them war sanctions there, Mr. Rutendo?
Thank you very much. I call them war sanctions because sanctions are war as defined by the Geneva Convention. They're actually illegal during wartime. If you impose sanctions or blockades on a country to stop citizens from having basics, from having food, even from having manufacturing activities taking place for the purpose of civilians, that is actually a war crime. And sanctions themselves are a weapon and a tool that have been used from traditional time to blockade a city, to blockade a group of people, to starve them to death. So it's just similar to bombing the bridges, roads, so that people do not have supplies. So it is war, but it is an illegal form of war. And so what it is that the United States has against upon Zimbabwe is an illegal set of war that is designed to try and blockade Zimbabwe, blockade it economically, blockade it from having international payments processed, and blockade it from getting even food and medicine and machinery in order for it to process its resources and produce for the world. And the reason these sanctions were put is because when our government came up with the radical policies of transforming the economy, transforming the control of land, transforming the control of resources, the Europeans decided that we are going to stop those people, those Zimbabweans who've been given access to land and resources, from processing those resources in order to take them to market. And remember, I had given a background to say, first of all, Zimbabwe had created the best education system in Africa. And when they did that, they also created the best stock exchange in Africa. And when that came together with the taking of land, that came together with the taking of resources and putting those resources and land into the hands of these educated people, it became a threat to the West. It became a threat to the West in the aspect that if Zimbabwe can successfully take its land, farm that land and produce, and then take their resources and sophisticate their resources with this educated group of people that control the stock exchange, or the second biggest stock exchange in Africa, it would become a threat, because now we can produce what the Europeans are using our resources to produce, and we can set an example to the rest of Africa. It can be done by a black country, that you take over your resources, you sophisticate those resources, you produce with your land, and you can actually export finished goods from an African country. That was a threat to Europe. And this was a threat when you put it also alongside the fact that not only did Zimbabwe educate its people to control their resources and build the stock exchange, they were now using their army to fight tyranny of imperialism in Southern Africa, to send their army to Mozambique and defeat MNR bandits that were there destabilizing Mozambique, and to go to Congo and try and stop American funded rebels. In fact, they stopped the American funded rebels from overthrowing Laurent Kabila to lead the Sun City Accord, and that was not comfortable for the West. That's why they sanctions. So these sanctions are affecting Zimbabwe, and we are standing up to fight them because they're illegal, they're inhumane, illegal at international law, and we are saying that those sanctions must be taken off because they are not part and parcel of the world customs or the world international legal system that we're supposed to be building, and human rights laws that we're supposed to be putting in place.
All right, and something that you brought before someone else comes in, let me just follow up there with something you mentioned there. And we know Zimbabwe is among the countries that are highly sanctioned, the likes of Iran and other countries across the world. So the sanctions really, it's one of the most sanctions country, among the most sanctions country in the world. It's interesting you mentioned there, because we know that Robert Mugabe and Zimbabwe indeed was a darling of the West until about 22 or thereabout years, 20 plus years ago, when Zimbabwe embarked, or Robert Mugabe embarked on these land reforms so that he could do right by the black Zimbabweans there. And before then, Zimbabwe earlier was one of the countries here in Africa that could feed itself. Actually, Zimbabwe was known as the food basket here in Africa. But now some critics would say after the land reforms, happened, and some of these huge chunks of land that were owned by the minority white farmers have given back to the blacks. That is the time where now Zimbabwe, right now as we speak, nearly 50% of the population there is dependent on donor food, and this was not supposed to be the case. So what really happened, and what went wrong?
No, Zimbabwe was never a bread basket, especially.
But one of the few countries in Africa that could feed itself very well.
No, it could not feed itself. That's why our brothers and sisters, young people of 14 years and 16 years of age, had to go into the bush. They had to walk to Tanzania. They had to walk to Zambia and Mozambique to take up arms to go and fight the Rhodesian government together with its South African apartheid partner. They were no longer scared of that machinery and that sophisticated military equipment because they were dying of hunger. Zimbabwe was synonymous with something called marasmus, kwashiorkor, and hunger and malnutrition. That's what caused our fathers to go and fight in the bush. And the reason they were fighting in the bush is that they didn't have food. There were many people dying in the villages. Even those that were working on mines and working in the agricultural sector were paid peanuts that they couldn't even feed their children. So there's this imagery that used to be synonymous with Rhodesia of children with big heads and big tummies and very skinny bodies. That was a sign of the starvation that was linked with the Rhodesian government. When Mugabe came in, all the statistics of this farming that is being made the pride of Zimbabwe, that's when it started. The records for grain, the records for wheat, the records for cotton, the records for beef were set in the Zimbabwe of Mugabe. And it was not a darling of the West. The reason it was not a darling of the West is that from the time we got independence, the South African apartheid government was given the task to destabilize SADC. And its biggest targets in SADC were Angola, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, to make sure that their independence does not succeed. The apartheid government started what was called Gukura Hundi, or a tribal war between Ndebele dissidents that they were funding and the government of Zimbabwe to try and start a tribal war to make sure that Zimbabwe failed. But Mugabe's strategy of educating his people, making sure that those people were going to be able to take the country forward, was the only reason why the Europeans were unable to break Zimbabwe. And so they used the apartheid government, they used debt, forced Zimbabwe to take Rhodesian debt, and forced that debt to bring down Zimbabwe, but Zimbabwe still remains standing. That's why now we've got these sanctions, because they want to make sure that Zimbabwe must fail and not succeed, because its example will take the nation forward and the continent forward. And finally, right now, where we are sitting with Zimbabwe, if it was not for the educated workforce of Zimbabwe, the educated people of Zimbabwe that have become an export and the biggest export of Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe would have fallen to the sanctions. But it hasn't fallen to the sanctions because those people who are in the diaspora now are bringing back foreign currency that the Americans have closed off, that the Europeans have closed off, and that is what is keeping Zimbabwe afloat. We cannot farm as effectively because of droughts. We cannot farm as effectively because of these sanctions, but still the highest tobacco numbers have been reached now under sanctions. The highest production of maize was reached when the drought gave us a little bit of a break in 2017 under sanctions. Cotton numbers are the highest in Zimbabwe under sanctions. So what we are saying to Africa is you need to partner with Zimbabwe so that we can be able to break and bust these sanctions by using some other countries in Africa to take our produce to market, and also by getting funding, investment from those places, because Zimbabwe needs to be destroyed by Europe in order to discourage the rest of Africa from taking their land and from thinking that their people can produce. We can produce. If they don't have sanctions on us, we will produce.
So Zimbabwe is being fairly treated, as you put it there, so that they are setting an example through Zimbabwe, and the people of Zimbabwe, unfortunately, are the ones who are really bearing the brunt of these unfortunate sanctions by the West. Their Daniel, rather.
Let me come in to make a position before Daniel comes in. Daniel Lutendo is about to go. It's a serious matter that we need to ask if he can spare some minutes for us. Another 20 minutes, Mr. Rutendo? Okay, fine. All of you have said something very interesting. Miriam has brought out that after the land was distributed, what happened? The sanctions came in to freeze the black man from buying fertilizers. The land was given to black people, but they could not buy. They had no foreign exchange to buy, to collect equipment needed to keep the farms going. There is one thing that you must know, that the Lancaster Agreement that was hammered in 1980 in Lancaster House prohibited the people of Zimbabwe from changing the constitution. And I know the bitterness of Rutendo when he says this thing of the West is really bad. They made an agreement, a Lancaster agreement, but they said for 15 years, you don't touch anything in this constitution. I think you know that one, Rutendo. There's 15 years from 1980 to 1995. Zimbabweans were not supposed to say anything to the Lancaster Agreement. So 1997, 1998, a new government in Britain arrives, changes things on the scene. Tony Blair, the one you see with Strive Masiwa, walking around Africa to look for, look for work, decided to go a different way. Johnny Major wanted willing buyer, willing seller, compensation for the white settler to go home. And look, the problem of Zimbabwe must be stressed this way. 4,000 commercial farmers owned 80% of arable land, Miriam, and viewers. 80% of arable land of Zimbabwe of rainfall A and B, where rainfall was. The rest 14 million at that time. Now Zimbabwe, they have about 18 million people. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're correct.
They were living with animals in parks, near the parks, where they have to defend themselves with hyenas, leopards, killing them. But the white 4,000 white commercial farmers owned the whole of Zimbabwe. That they did not utilize all the land. What they utilized was to pick flowers. They used like 2 hectares to plant flowers, or 48 hectares. The rest of land was just fallow, left there. And they owned by absentee landlords who were not even in Zimbabwe. Absentee landlords. Believe me or not, a white who is living in Zimbabwe has the best house than a white living in London. I'll tell you why. That was the argument I used to finish Tony Blair. Those who accepted one house, one farm, one man, one farm, they are there in the city of Harare, plenty of them up to today. In fact, they are doing their business. Rutendo will tell you, they are doing their business very well. They are still farming on those farms. But the people who refused, who wanted to take all land and remain there, are the people who caused Zimbabwe, who are still calling for these sanctions. Sanctions were again called by the Democratic MDC, Democratic Party on Movement for Democratic something. I think let's call it the Movement for Democratic Confusion. Change. Not no, I can't call it change.
That is the name of the party.
Okay, it is the name of the party, but for me, I and Mr. Changarai,
yeah. It has been a vehicle for confusion in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Okay.
But, thank you very much, William. You correct me, but me and the Changarai, until God sorts us out,
yes,
we were all parallels. God has taken him first. Let him pray for me and keep a space for me. I'm coming. Because I will go the same journey. But I told him I will never, as long as I'm in this world, you will never rule Zimbabwe. You will never come to rule Zimbabwe. Because he's the one who called for sanctions to kill Zimbabwe. They went with Watchman Kube. Let me tell this young man, Rutendo, today. There are people there in Zimbabwe who should not be talking. Tendai Biti, Watchman Kube. These are the people you should not even entertain near your table for any politics of Zimbabwe. These are the people who called for sanctions in Europe. They went to Europe and they said, Matanga said, have you seen the book by Morgan Changarai? You saw what Morgan Changarai wrote about me. Where's the book? It's somewhere here. He wrote a full chapter because I told him there's a book by the Deep Sea by Morgan Changarai. I will show you.
Probably have it here, Doctor. I don't know.
It is somewhere here. I'll look for it.
Okay.
Among these books. Very bad man. Yes, it's here. Look at this. Look at this book. He dedicated a full page for this man speaking. It is in here. Page 53. You will find Matanga described by that dead man called Morgan Changarai. I have no regrets. God will help me. I don't talk about the people who have died. But if he is ahead of me, prepare my way, I'm coming to finish the business. Let me tell you, they killed Zimbabwe. This nation was the hope of Africa. This nation was the honeymoon of Africa. This nation was where we could go to buy everything that you see in Marks and Spencer. Every African wants to buy Marks and Spencer cotton. Where was it coming from? Zimbabwe. They removed the label. Zimbabwe, they put Marks and Spencer. This nation you see today, Mr. Rutendo did a video last night where American embassy, the land around the American embassy is what do you call it? Is cutting itself. There are so many things. It is breaking to pieces. So people are saying American embassy wants to buy everybody around there to get away. And the video, I'm going to put it on for people to see that this embassy, what are they digging down there, which is breaking the roads to pieces. The American embassy in Harare is the booster nation for imperialism in Africa. Time has come for the people of Zimbabwe to remove that embassy. Tell them, the ambassador, to go home because there's nothing. Why do you eat our food? Why are you eating food in Zimbabwe? Why are you even breathing our air in Zimbabwe? You breathe our air when you have stopped the people from getting medicine. What is the embassy doing there?
All right.
To do what?
And speaking about land.
Emerson. No, listen, let me ask. Give me 1 minute. Let me ask Emerson. What, ED, why are you keeping the embassy there? What do we get in Washington? What are we getting from America? Abuse, insults. Our heads are big, small, but this, what is for? Is Trump's head good? Worth it? His head is worse.
It is.
So let them go away from Zimbabwe. Let them leave Zimbabwe alone. Let them pack their goods and leave. Some of us are fed up. I have struggled since 1997 for this nation, Zimbabwe. I'm fed up of seeing an American ambassador, a black man, like a Johnny Johnson. Johnny, you remember that one who used to be there? Johnny. Every black man who's brought in Zimbabwe is worse than a hyena. They want to kill Zimbabwe. In fact, it is better to be arrested by a Jamaican police in London, a white policeman in London, than to be arrested by a Jamaican. Because a Jamaican wants to pretend to be more white. So for me, this black guy there in the Zimbabwean capital, Bataire, Rutendo, take this fight near that embassy. Let people know people are not happy. Release more banks. Release more banks to exchange. The last point I want to make, Zimbabwe has diamonds. It has gold. It has all the goods that Africa wants. I want to tell the Minister of Finance to change his language. And I want us to change this narrative. Instead of saying, remove sanctions, Rutendo, say, avoid sanctions. Let's beat the sanctions. You bring the diamonds, we sell them in Africa. These people are stupid. We sell them here. Let the Zimbabwe government work with Kenyan government or other governments in the world. We sell them and give them money to improve their economy. Zimbabweans, Ian Smith with sanctions. Now you people are saying, oh, crying, sanctions. Beat them. That's my strategy. And I'm going to put it in paper to tell the president, President Mnangagwa, beat the sanctions. If we carry our plane full of diamonds into Dubai, openly as a government, the Dubai people give us cash. We buy goods for our government, for our people, medicine. Who's going to stop us? What can I hear these things of yours? Oh, beat sanctions. Let's beat the sanctions. That's my way. The next after Corona, I'm coming, Emerson.
All right, hashtag let's beat the sanctions. Yes.
After Corona, Miriam, Emerson, he knows me. He knows David is speaking. Let me remove the glasses. I am coming. Let's beat the sanctions. Time has come to beat the sanctions. We have cried too much of remove sanctions. Let's beat them. Let Zimbabwe trade. There are so many Africans in Kenya who want to invest in Zimbabwe. Why can't we come and persuade them in Kenya, persuade President Uhuru Kenyatta to go and invest in Zimbabwe? Why are we crying for these white guys who don't want us? You think Trump wants us? He tells Zimbabwe that allow demonstrators to break things on the streets of Harare, while in his country he's hammering blacks who are demonstrating. What type of president is this? It's a mafia. It's a mafia president. We cannot accept to talk about sanction. In fact, Rutendo from today, change the motion, beat the sanctions, not to remove.
I've already written a strategy to the government that is talking about mitigating the sanctions, because we fully understand that the sanctions will never be removed, just like neocolonialism will never be removed. However, we are saying beat the sanctions, produce, use the land, use the minerals. And let me tell you this, David. Did you know that in Africa, there's only 2 countries that are in the top 5 number of countries that have the highest amount of savings outside their own country? Those 2 countries are Kenya and Zimbabwe. Kenya and Zimbabwe has got more savings in terms of their GDP than any other countries in Africa, and they are number 3 and 4 on the list of countries that have got the highest amount of savings in tax havens in the world. Kenya and Zimbabwe. And we're looking at above 60% of their GDP that is saved outside in tax havens. So our countries have got people with money, huge money. And I just wanted to fix a few things, David. Number 1, Zimbabwe was not allowed to change the constitution for 10 years. And so they were not allowed to take land compulsorily from white people until 1990, 10 years after independence. But the land reform began in 1980, the moment we got independence, by willing buyer, willing seller. The agreement was that Zimbabweans would buy land, the Zimbabwean government would buy land from white farmers, and then they would distribute that land that they buy to the black people. And that land would be on a willing buyer, willing seller. The seller price was determined by a committee of real estate agents that were white, who determined what the price would be. And these real estate agents would continue to escalate the price so that the Zimbabwean government would not be able to afford it for those 10 years. Another condition was that when the Zimbabwean government buys this land, they must put forward 50% of the value of that land in foreign currency, and then the British, Americans, and Europeans would put the other 50% only after the Zimbabwean government had put up money to buy that land. So because the Zimbabwean government sometimes didn't have money, they could not buy all the land that was on the market. And because these white real estate agents, when this committee was escalating the prices, they were discouraging the government to buy land. 1990 came. The very first thing that Robert Mugabe did was to change the Land Appropriation Act in 1992, 12 years after independence and 2 years after the moratorium of not touching the constitution had passed. Mugabe changed that, and he created a new committee that would be government controlled to earmark land that must be taken. And he also determined that land would be paid in Zim dollars, and they would pay the value that they felt was suitable for the land to be returned. The British, Americans, Europeans were not happy with this. So this is when the Queen tried to knight Robert Mugabe, to try and placate him not to take land. On the other hand, the ANC in 1990 came and approached the Zimbabwean government and said that we know that you are now taking land compulsorily. You are now going to take land as and how you feel. But can you wait so that we can negotiate for our independence? Can you wait so that the Boers are not afraid of giving us power because of you taking land? Mugabe said, it's fine. While you are negotiating your independence, I will negotiate with the British, who are not happy with our new constitution, so that we can see how we can meet each other halfway. Mugabe was negotiating while waiting for ANC to get its independence. The British were stalling. And when John Major, when the Blair government came in, they basically said, we are not here to honor any agreements by our previous political parties, which is a nonsense. There is nothing called a political party in government. Government is one government, and whatever deals or contracts that it makes and treaties that it makes, it is supposed to meet up with those. So the British government reneged on that agreement. Mugabe said, no, it's not a problem. I've been nice for 17 years, hoping to create good relations. I have been honoring my end of the Lancaster House agreement, but you have reneged on the Lancaster House agreement. It's now time that I take land, whether you like it or not, because I have met my end of the bargain. This is how now the European, Americans, and the Britons asked Zimbabwe for what was called the Land Conference in 1998, trying to persuade the Zimbabwean government to go back and change the terms of Lancaster. Mugabe said, we already have an agreement. We're not going to change the agreement. That's when sanctions came, together with the issue of Zimbabwe being in Congo, together with the issue of Zimbabwe transforming its stock exchange, and together with this issue of Zimbabwe empowering its people. That's what caused that. That's why I want to say to Africans, Zimbabwe is like Haiti. Haiti in 1804 became the poster child of independence of black people from slavery. Zimbabwe is the poster child of independence, economic independence for black people, and the whole of Africa needs to rally behind Zimbabwe in order for that to be successful, so that you everywhere else in Africa can do the same thing. Finally, the reason why Zimbabwe was punished and the land issue was a problem was not because of the 4,000 white farmers that were in Zimbabwe. The issue was the land. 3 million hectares of Zimbabwean land was owned by just 10 companies. 10 companies that belonged to the British, the Americans, and European. We had one company that is called Lonro that owned 1 million hectares, bigger than the size of Belgium on its own. That company was called Lonro and Wellabees. These companies are the reason why Zimbabwe was punished much more than the citizens of Britain. But Zimbabwe was also punished because what made white people take land was a law that is called the Law of Discovery. This law was created by a pope in 1455. This gave white people the right to take land from non-Christians. And that law continues till today, and it has been put into precedence of US law by US judges. So by Zimbabweans taking back land, they are creating a precedent in international law for Africans and native peoples to get back their land. If that is allowed to happen, it means that African Americans and African Indians and Aboriginals in Australia can also go to international court based on the same custom to ask for their land and the return of their land, and for white colonizers in America and white colonizers in Australia to go back. I'm going to reiterate this point. America is not a country. It is a colony. It is an American Indian country that has been taken by colonizers who must leave that land according to the UN Decolonization Charter and Declaration. And if they allow Zimbabweans to take back their land, American Indians will be empowered by legal custom and international custom to take their land. So will the Aborigines, so will the people Maoris in New Zealand. And this is what Zimbabwe stands for. And that is why it's a threat to the United States. And that is why 2 weeks ago, the National Security Advisor named Zimbabwe a threat to US interests among the Chinese and the Russians. It is because of these precedents that Zimbabwe is setting. Hence, Africa and all Aboriginal peoples need to stand behind Zimbabwe. And I'm not saying this because I'm a Zimbabwean. I'm saying this because I understand how Zimbabwe is changing international law, international customs, and race relations to break white supremacy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wesonga, I think that Wesonga just is then we move to this. I think we have exhausted. Miriam and I are co-presenters and co-hosts. So, Wesonga, just 1 minute. You have listened, you have learned quite a lot from Rutendo. Just keep putting your words.
Yes, I've really learned a lot from Rutendo's submission. And when you look at the World Economic Classification, we have the first world, second world, and the third world. The first world is already exhausted. The second world is already exhausted. And it is we, Africa, the third world, that is the only remaining field to extinction.
We still have strength. Yes.
Yes. So I think as Africans, we need to go back to the drawing board, sit with ourselves and come up with policies that are well resonate with our culture, policies in economics, politics, in how we do our politics, democracy, and all that, so that we avoid these greatest and new, which have been copy and pasting whatever comes from West. When you read about what the president of African Development Bank, Mr. Adesina, was talking about, is that Africans are producing commodities and exporting them to the West. But when, like for example, when we export cocoa, when we export coffee, the product that comes from the West cannot be afforded by the same people who are farming them here in Africa. So if we can really restructure our economy, if we can make sure that our agricultural produce is added value, then I think Africa has a lot of potential, and that is the reason why we do have this second scramble for Africa. That is why we have these proxy wars in Central Africa, in Congo, because we have a lot as a continent, and we need to realize that and be able to utilize them to our own benefit. And that was a very quite an informative discussion today with Tamatanga.
Yes, and thank you so much. And Daniel, Doctor, before we go to the next topic, or having Professor Nyari, I just have a question. I just have a question for Rutendo Matinyarare. I don't know if I said your name right there. But we know that right now, South Africa has embarked on its own land reforms. And, history, looking at what happened there in Zimbabwe, what lessons do you think South Africa can learn from Zimbabwe in terms of its own land land reforms, and what strategies and what other pitfalls perhaps South Africa can avoid in regards to just looking at the two situations there? What can South Africa learn from Zimbabwe's land reforms?
I think the very first thing I need to say is that South Africa is not embarking on a land reform program. They have created the resolution in Parliament, but there is no political will to undertake land reform because the elite that is presiding in South Africa seeks to maintain apartheid, seeks to maintain the old order because they are benefiting. They've got nice cars, they wear suits, and they think this is what is important and this is what matters. But the ANC suffers the threat of being removed from power by the majority if they do not commit to this land reform program. And on the question that you said, what are the lessons that can be learned from land reform when it comes to South Africa? I think we need to categorically make Africans understand that there are no lessons to be learned when it comes to sequestrating stolen property. You must never apologize for taking stolen property because even common law says that stolen property can never belong to the person that is holding on to the stolen property. Secondly, they need to learn that they must never compensate anybody for their stolen property. Thirdly, they must make sure that they make those who stole land compensate for taking down trees, for polluting that land with fertilizers and chemicals, for growing crops on land that we never used to grow crops traditionally as Africans, lands that were called Rambotemwa, or sacred lands that were never supposed to be plowed on because we were preserving trees, we were preserving nature and fauna. And also there are areas where they planted that caused siltation of our rivers. They must pay damages. White people must pay damages for that. They must also pay damages for what is called unjust enrichment. For all the profits and gains that they receive from our lands and resources, they must return a payment. Then they must pay what are called reparations. This would make sure that Europe has no money if we Africans implemented that. South Africa must also unite with Zimbabwe and every African country to do this land reform program. And they must try and make sure that they get other African countries to do land reform program at the same time and to control resources at the same time so that the Europeans cannot isolate any particular country, but that we do it in concert so that it sticks. Another thing, because that's why now you see South Africa is leading the fight against Zimbabwean sanctions. South Africa is only leading that now because there is talk of land reform, which I say they are not committed to, but they might have to do it if ANC is going to survive. But I say ANC are hypocrites. They are hypocrites because they isolated Zimbabwe for 18 years, and now that they realize that they might be pushed out of power if they don't take land, they're beginning to embrace Zimbabwe and fight Zimbabwean sanctions only because they've got their own personal interests and their own nation that they're trying to save. I call that hypocrisy, but if they are learning now, it's fine. Let them learn and let them implement this together with the rest of Africa and understand that without defending Zimbabwe from the sanctions, South African land reform is impossible because Zimbabwe is being punished to stop South Africa from taking its land and taking its resources.
And Namibia
so those
also,
are the that need to be learned.
Namibia also, the president there has made it categorical a few months ago. He said they've been trying to approach this matter very soberly and nicely, but now they'll become, as what the president said, masculine in how they're going to approach this land reforms there, because is it about 75% of the land is owned by 10% of the population, the Germans, and I mean, how does that even make sense? I mean, it does not make sense at all. So thank you so much, Mr. Rutendo.
Thank you so much for your time. It has been a beautiful experience.
Rutendo can't wait. Are you able to wait?
It's very informative. Yes, absolutely.
Wait, these topics. The topics coming in are very weighty.
Biafra. We want to talk about yes, Nigeria.
They touch your nerves. So let Miriam guide us in the next topic. They are very good. For today only, spare for this Pan-African television.
I've got another engagement.
Yes.
Okay. We can have him next time. Rutendo, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Keep it going. Now we can always remember to tell the Minister of Finance that this notion of saying remove sanctions, avoid it. Let him go to Africa and look for partners. That's what Wesonga made clear. We are now a third world, not no longer third world. We are the potential. We have our diamonds unattached. We have our oil unattached. Our gas unattached. Look at everybody scrambling for northern Mozambique because there is hot gas, hot springs there.
In Cabo.
They don't have it. It's finished. It's finished. Finito. America is finished. You see the way things came in America. They are finished.
Yeah, they are finished.
They are killing a man for a note. 20 shilling dollar. $20. They are finished. They have no brains. In Africa, an Indian will not kill you because you have given him a note, which he doubts. He will bring a machine to check and tell you that, my friend, this note is not very good. Can you see that Floyd George died because of $20 note? Look at what? Are these the people you can respect? Are these?
I've got to go, guys.
All right.
It's been good.
It was
Thank you very much. Take care and take the message to everybody.
All right.
God bless you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Rutendo Nati Nyarare there from Zimbabwe, but currently in Matanyirare, currently in South Africa, Johannesburg. He is the founder of Frontline Strat Marketing Consultant and also the founder of Zimbabwe's Unite Against the U.S. War Sanctions there. So thank you so much for your time. So right now we just turn straight to our next country that we had in store for you today, Nigeria, the boiling pot of Africa. When will the world listen to Biafra? And for more than 5 years now, the IPOB and other pro-Biafra groups have been organizing peaceful protests across the country and demanding for self-determination. Led by Nnamdi Kanu, a British Nigerian activist, IPOB blames the central government for leaving the region marginalized and is seeking a peaceful referendum to break away from Nigeria and create a separate state. That doesn't sit well, of course, with the fragile central government, which has frequently used force to try to crush the movement. Doctor and the rest of the panelists there, we see Nigerian government has not been very happy with the activities of the IPOB, and IPOB is not relenting in its quest to self-actualize. So I don't know which. Is Nigeria the new boiling point here in Africa? Anybody can pick the question.
Thank you very much. I think let me start the ball, then Daniel can come in.
Very well.
Look, the question of Nigeria
Yes,
Africa, between the men and the women and the boys and the men. The Nigerian War of 1967, 66 by Ojukwu and Gowon separated men and boys on this continent. The men were Nyerere, Obote, Jomo Kenyatta, Kaunda, Haile Selassie. Look at that. Against the rest. The rest were women, we don't know. Although I don't know. I will give respect. Nyerere stood up. And I want to teach this tonight. Recognize the Biafra. Obote stood up. And the Museveni should give Obote credit. Should remove him in the mouth, in that tongue, where it says Obote, Obote. Obote made him where he is. Was a student of Obote's politics. So let's give respect where it is due. Yes, even going to Tanzania, it is Obote who took President Museveni because he was working in his office. He worked there, and he said, he should not call us Obote people all the time. Mr. President Museveni was Obote man working. Obote recognized Biafra. The people of Biafra got recognition from Kaunda, from Kenyatta, from other leaders. African Union, Organization of African Unity, was split. Now, in 2020, 2021, we want to split AU. This is Matanga's strategy to Biafrans and to heads of state. We want to count men. We want to count men from boys. We are fed up. People in Africa want men, not boys. Enough is enough. 5 years, the people of Biafra have been killed, maimed by Buhari, the last standing general of 1966-67 crisis of Nigeria. Buhari came back to finish Biafrans, to kill them. I don't speak with good language here. Because the events, if I play you the videos that are taking place since COVID-19 has slowed the soldiers from coming down to Biafran land. But the soldiers are devoted pangas, daggers. How do you import 50,000 daggers? To kill who? Buhari allowed the importation of daggers, Rwongo swords. To kill who? To kill Biafrans. Biafrans in Nigeria are discriminated. They are given names. When they go to north of Nigeria, they are told to go back home. Where is home? Nigeria is their home. Why are they discriminated in their own country? And why is it that the AU has not brought any suggestion on how to cool the relationship, Miriam?
Yes.
Let's divide it. I swear I'll start this motion. Let's divide this AU. There is no African Union here. There is African fragmentation. Fragmentation of the states in Africa. Don't go to AU. It's good Corona has come. No more leaders are going to waste our money flying with planes to Addis Ababa. All of us have Zoom. Put us on Zoom. And we tell you leaders, whether you are seated in Kenya, or Nairobi, or Harare, or Rwanda, or Kinshasa, let people come and lecture to you what is happening in Africa. The AU Zoom can take 1,000 people. We shall call upon you people, leaders, to look and throw out some leaders who have become very bad. Look at Buhari. Look at Buhari. What did I predict here, Miriam? When COVID-19 started, I told you the figures of Nigeria are fictitious. Haven't you now found them fictitious? You see how they are marathoning. Is a time against race
against
in Nigeria.
time. Yes.
If you can give us the current figure. What is the current figure of Nigeria?
As per a couple of maybe about 3 hours ago when we prepared these figures, Nigeria right now stood at 15,682 confirmed cases. The death toll there is 407, and the number of people who have recovered so far is 5,101.
You think that is a correct figure? It can't be a correct figure. A population of 220 million people. Somebody is hiding facts. Miriam, believe me or not, a population of 200 million people, 220, because they don't, you know, there are people dying. There are people dying there, but they have no voice. They can't say anything. If you say something, the soldiers beat you up to death. They roll you, they tie you on a Land Rover and drive the Land Rover through the villages. Is this Africa that we want? Yes, I have photographs. I have just been sent a photograph from Onitsha. Right now, it's not coming from London. Onitsha, a city in Nigeria, where yesterday soldiers dragged younger men in this COVID-19 on a Land Rover, drove them until they lost their voices. Then you call me George Floyd, Floyd. Look, we are condemning America that we should come in this black consciousness of Martin Luther. Oh, America. We are killing our own people. We are killing our own people.
You don't want the Martin Luther approach, you want the Malcolm X approach. But very true, Doctor, and when you started
I am not going from today. I am not going to be a student of manufactured consent. That you can tell Deputy President William Ruto, not me. I'm not a student of manufactured consent. You know, manufactured consent is what has brought Kenya where you are. Dish out money, turn the president into a belittled image, go to his yard, tell the younger men there that the president has been stealing your land since independence, then you go back to your farm. That's manufactured consent. Not Matanga. Leave me to die alone. I'm ready. Not again. You cannot call this AU. Let's split it. President Uhuru Kenyatta asked me why I want to split AU. And for me, don't joke with me, gentlemen. When I start, this AU can come back down. I am telling you, I will give reasons until they remove that guy. Do you know the guy I want out of AU? That tall man from Chad. Remove him now. Mr. Muhammad Faki must leave AU. The people of Biafra are dying now. No motion has ever been brought. Not a single mention that we are on the Security Council of Africa. What is Security Council of Africa? Paperwork, collecting paperwork of dead bodies.
And a beautiful office, I think, on a window
And
in
a
a
beautiful
corner.
office.
And yes.
Where our presidents are tapped by French. When they go there, Uhuru's voice is tapped, taken to France. Is that what we want? Is that why Nkrumah died? Is that why Patrice Lumumba was murdered? Is that why Sekou was murdered? Is that why people were killed? Is that why Gabriel Nasser created? Why Empress Haile Selassie was killed, buried like a dog? Is that the Africa we want? If you are killing people, your own army cannot kill Boko Haram, even half a leg. You know what? You don't want African Union to involve itself in Boko Haram. You say you are able, you have a mighty Nigerian Shuji men. Useless. They can't even get anybody. They can't even kill a frog. This Boko Haram have defeated them. At least I can agree with Museveni. Museveni has defeated several wars. But huyu Buhari, bure kabisa. Bure. Killing his own people. Boko Haram has been there for how many years? Last night you saw what they did. They killed more people. You know it, you have it on record media. What can we do?
And just a few days ago also, we reported more killings by Boko Haram here. Was it on Thursday? Thereabout. So yes, Boko Haram has been continuing with these activities. I don't know, do we still have Professor Onyari or he left?
Onyari, they can't handle this. It's tough.
All right, Daniel. I don't know if Daniel is still there. Maybe he should tell us. Because AU has really not. I've not seen anywhere in AU where the issue of the Biafrans or the suffering of the people that side of Nigeria have been discussed, have been thought to be urgent enough. I've not seen that. So AU, Daniel, is it really serving our interest, or what is the purpose of AU as it is right now?
I think the AU has been for so long been a defunct vehicle, and a majority of Africans do not have any faith with the AU itself. And of course, Dr. Matsanga has been very vocal on this, calling for the top leadership of AU to resign from the precincts of leadership, because Mr. Musa Mahamat has shown that indeed the top organ of the African Union is not up to the task. And of course, for years, the people of Biafra have faced a lot of atrocity from subsequent governments in Nigeria. A lot have been killed, a lot of their women raped, and all kind of heinous acts that have been going on unabated. And the AU also has been the safe haven, the custodian of rule of law in ensuring that people of Biafra are not persecuted by the central governments of Nigeria. So, to me, I think the people of Biafra are on their own, and the rest of Africa as well, because the African Union seems to be a boys' club where they only look at their own interests. They are only after getting the money that comes with it, the favors and all the deals that come from the Western nations and America, but not the interest of the African people. So to me, I think it is high time as the African continent, we sought the leadership, an alternative leadership to what we are having under Mr. Musa Faki, the chairman of the AU.
Yeah.
All right, and last week we saw the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, the Australian branch. They have a branch there in Australia. There it is headed by Chief Cyprian Okoye, and he told reporters in Enugu last week on Tuesday that the current agitation over the Republic of Biafra would continue as much as the federal government had insisted on treating Igbos as non-members of the country. Now he stated that the Igbo had not been treated fairly, stressing that the abuse faced by its people has gone much up in the current administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. So Biafrans, they are saying, no, we are not letting, we must have our own self-determination.
The question of self-determination was asked for quietly. They said, give us a referendum to decide our destiny. Africa wanted Nigeria would be safer for everybody if you gave these guys a referendum. But Buhari refused. Buhari dragged on. Buhari even manipulated the elections. One of the examples of the bad elections in Africa is Nigeria. 1 hour before the opening of the polls, they cancelled.
Yeah, we are here. We were here last year and we were waiting to report on that, yes. And then the elections were cancelled.
We were waiting to announce
the 9th hour
of the election.
Absolutely.
The Electoral Commission cancelled the election. They went back to figure it with the figures, to create new figures, to tell the world, that told Buhari to tell the world that he is all right. The election has been won. Won by whom? By ghosts. If you have 84 million people registered to vote, and a million, you have 28 million only who voted. What happened to the 56 million? Where did they go? Do the mathematics. 50 million people who had registered sat at home. They did not take part in an election. You just shift power. And you are in power and saying, I am all right. Your Chief Justice comes to say, you have appointed me, but I don't have a certificate. My certificate was eaten by ants.
And they removed a competent Chief Justice 2 weeks to elections. And it
Yes.
brings in another one who does not even have the papers, were eaten by...
Who is going to speak for this guy in Nigeria?
I even can.
It's us from outside Nigeria. It's us from outside East West Africa. We have to speak louder. We must help them to liberate themselves. We spoke for Gambia until Gambia got Yaya away. This television station stood, brought a satellite, took a satellite link into Gambia. Now Adama Barrow is also spoiling. That watchman from North London is spoiling. He has to, you see, because he went to listen to the French. When you listen to the French in this continent, you fall asleep. By the time you wake up, they have arrived on Bujumbura. You see the trouble in Bujumbura. You see the proxy war around here. It's smelling. Something is smelling. But the people don't want to smell it. Some people want to go around walking that things are okay. They are not. Museveni is not talking to Kagame. Two mighty armies. Two mighty armies. I am lucky I removed my tracks. Now I can speak. I removed them from there. Two mighty armies. They looked my track for 4 years, 6 months. You call this African what? What is this? That African what? What is this? You detain somebody's property for 2 years, for 4 months, 6 months. What does he eat from? Now you see the trouble we have now? It has, do you know why it has ended? It has resurrected. Between me and you, Miriam, it is here. There is a proxy war here in Africa. In East Africa, look at what is happening. So watch the space. We must liberate the people of Biafra. We must fight for their rights. We must always speak out. The Biafran issue cannot be solved unless we have a Nyerere, Jomo Kenyatta, Kenneth Kaunda, Milton Obote, Emperor Haile Selassie. Those who stood up and said, no, no, we have recognized Biafra. And we recognize Ojukwu. At least I've followed the footsteps of my president. My late president is down 6 feet, but he's hearing my voice. He always gives me encouragement. Every night I recite one of his speeches. I see the value of a united Africa. We must help the people of Biafra. If you can't give them a referendum, then don't kill them. Go and kill Boko Haram. Why have you turned the daggers on your own people in the southeast? When you leave London, let me tell you, you leave London to go to Port Harcourt for Christmas. You take Christmas is over is when you arrive home. A journey between London and Lagos is just 8 hours or so. The journey between Lagos Airport to your place in the southeast takes you 1 month by car. Miriam, I'm telling you the truth. That's how bad Nigeria is. Takes you 1 month. By the time people in Europe say you have to go to come back and work, guess what? You say I'm still on the road. I haven't even eaten the turkey. If you are bought the turkey to eat the following day, it will not be eaten. There is no infrastructure in southeastern Nigeria because these people are Igbo. The other tribes, these Obasanjos with big council walking around Africa looking for money. When you see Obasanjo run, he's coming to destroy your country. When you see him in a hotel, run. You know there is something cooking with money. Obasanjo does not come where there is no money. It's like a hyena that smells the food. A meat. There's nowhere. Show me one project Obasanjo has done without looking for money. We sent him to go and investigate human rights in South Sudan, which you are bringing next. We have South Sudan there.
Yes,
have you had the latest there? Have you had the latest?
I have the latest.
Mataka always calls and is vindicated. Have you had the latest in South Sudan? I told you. I told you. And I am very good at people. People call me Mr. I told you. It is true. Time comes when you have to rejoice. Even the Bible said, collect your dust and disappear.
So what has happened in South Sudan? Let's just get to South Sudan then.
Let's finish this Biafra. The South Sudan journey. People are fighting. Local militias, tribes are fighting again.
That has been happening, yes.
We have a problem. The entire cabinet is sick, including there's only one. My friend, things God comes in different circumstances. But this one, I don't know.
Yes, and of course, the European Union. Yes.
Yes.
The European. Yes. Okay, go ahead.
When you see what is happening in Biafra, the problem of Nigeria is African Union. They fear to tell Buhari because Mr. Muhammad Faki is the same tribe as Buhari. All of them are Fulani herdsmen. So he doesn't want to tell his fellow Fulani that you are killing Biafrans. For us in Uganda, we are saved. We can have our poverty and a few sticks that we canes, that we see some policemen caning people, which is not very good. They land on you, they cane you as if they produced you. They are not your mother. President Museveni has got to look into that type of behavior.
Yeah, it's very primitive.
It's very primitive
yes.
for people to land on a human being and hammer him from all sides, as if the mother is watching, even crying. What is this? What is this? What is this? You kill people in Biafra, kill all of them. You roll younger men on a Land Rover and drive them around the village for people to see until their limbs are ripped off. What type of Nigerian army is this? What type of army is this? And the AU is keeping quiet. Because the man at the helm, a Fulani man called Muhammad Faki, very dangerous man, who has sold African Union to the French for his presidential money, so that he goes home to go and fight President Idris. I'm going to make him knock with Idris. I'm deadly. Watch me. Mr. I have been looking. I've already now got the number of Idris. Next week, I'm calling President Idris and tell him, show him the evidence. He might not return to Chad. Let's all be in exile. Ajue namna hivyo. He has made us lose. You can't bring an agenda on Biafra, which is bleeding. Let's cross over to Amazonia.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much there. And to Amazonia, according to the Norwegian Refugee Council, the latest report there, Cameroon's displacement crisis, including the Anglophone crisis, is the one of the most neglected conflicts in this continent. In a statement issued on Wednesday, the Secretary General of the Norwegian Refugee Council stated that Africa is home to 9 of 10 of the worst neglected displacement, but they raised a lot of concern over the Anglophone crisis and also the rampage that is being run by Boko Haram there. But Doctor, the crisis involving the Anglophone region and the Cameroonian government, are we even hoping to see an end to this anytime soon?
4 years ago, when this television station took the matter of Amazonia, we did not know that we could reach where we have reached. I want to thank Amazonians. We have reached where we are. At least today, the United Nations Security Council is mentioning you. If I don't see that freedom come, bury me properly. Come and send your condolences. Help other African countries to liberate themselves. I have struggled for the liberation of Amazonia single-handedly. I worked. I brought out the issue of Forex. No money, no internet. No internet. The man cut off internet, the man cut off everything, the man closed shops, closed schools. A catalog of problems is taking place in Cameroon. Another dictator, 89 years old. Why is God not calling people? Ali, I am not God, and I don't wish to say call so and so. But God at times, have mercy. Have mercy. The wife of this dictator goes to buy hair for $1 million. $1 million. When Cameroonians are dying, Amazonians are dying, no medicine, no food. Kenya has lost people in Amazonia. A priest was murdered by Cameroonian army. Nobody has protested about the life of a Kenyan priest killed in Cameroon. Foreign Affairs in Kenya has kept quiet. Let them show me one file where they filed to ask the Cameroonian government to explain circumstances under which the father, the priest, died, was killed by Cameroonian army. Africa, again, the same Fulani man called Muhammad Faki has refused to bring any motion in the AU, table it about the plight of Amazonians. I want to thank America and the Senate and OCHA, United Nations Human Rights Organization, which has taken up a Norwegian relief agency, the Swiss government, that have taken up an initiative to bring the motion to the General Assembly, to the Security Council, to the American Senate, to the American Congress to deliver Amazonia. Don't give us, my brothers, don't give us, my sisters. One day, step by step, we shall move, we shall conquer. Amazonia will be a state. There is no other solution in Cameroon. other than Miriam, a two-way state. Resolution 16808 of the United Nations General Assembly gave Cameroon, Amazonia, the right of existence. Obasanjo, another thief on this continent, who walks around with those big dresses, carrying money in those big countries to take it back home using diplomatic bag, sold the people of Amazonia. He never took this motion. He never allowed it to go. The successive governments in Nigeria frustrated the liberation of the people of Amazonia. Amazonia needs a two-way state. Cameroon, with Paul Biya killing Amazonians on a daily basis. No motion has ever been brought to the African Council of Security, AU, because the African Union chairperson, Mr. Dr. Mahamati Faki, himself, the same tribe that does not want to allow the South Chadian people to be on their own, has sat on the motion. That's why I'm calling on AU to elect a new leader. Mtu mpya. Let's have a new chairperson. Let's have a new chairperson in the African Union. I am glad Corona has come, that no leader is going to fly there and confuse us. Tutawaona kwa Zoom. We are going to see who will speak. Hey, this time you won't hide us from Zoom, because we shall have the Zoom entry number. We are going to hear you. Every leader in Africa to say the problem in Cameroon is very good. Continue killing. Let's see you, then you return. This is very good. You know God knows how to adjust society. Wash your hands, stay firm, keep distance, wear a mask, and watch Amazonia be born. Watch Biafra to be recognized. Watch the space. Several states in Africa are coming up. Those two, watch them. Watch them. Very soon, Trump, after this COVID-19, you know, usually when I talk about Trump, somebody called me and said, you and the Trump, you speak, do you talk at night? I told you, ICC is zero fake organization. Trump has put a sanction. In fact, Trump arrest the Sudan. If you see the Sudanese and the American soil, arrest. Shika, because in London I'm waiting for her. I'm waiting for Besoda in London. She will not live in that house in Hampstead. I've marked the house, I've marked every document, ready for filing until she clears my name. Fatou Bensouda, the Gambian, if you don't clear my name, if you don't tell my children that I was not a liar, I will not have you to stay in that territory of Her Majesty. I want Paul Biya to fly to London tonight with me. And let's see who will be left in jail. We have put there the papers. They are there. I am not a joke on writing international law to fix you. I've now already, and I want to take this opportunity to tell Kenyans that Fatou Bensouda is leaving the office in October. She's going to present on 24th of September. Look at the boy. I know the date. They have kept it quiet. Look at this boy talking to you. Let him take off the glasses. Then you hear him. 24th of October of September. He's presenting the Kenyan scenario. And those who want to hear me, hear me. Those who have ears, hear me. You better check what situation of Kenya is going to be presented. Then you can jump with your Mudavadi.
All right. And earlier, Doctor, we had
I am. Yes. Listen, Miriam.
We have somebody. I think we have somebody. We had another person. One of our viewers there.
It's coming. But let me tell you, this one is very interesting. Look at this. I told the people to go slow. They never listened. Now mark the date, 24th September. Have you seen the clouds might change? The woman will be presenting in the United Nations. Her final exit is called exit report. She's going forever. She's going bye-bye. She's leaving after faking evidence, but she's leaving blood dropping. Have you seen how she has left America, swearing to blow that building? Now, Miriam, I want to tell you how can you guess how she will leave Kenya? Guess for me. That time the people don't respect Matanga. But this time, and I want to tell you, this time, this giant talking to you might not be here. And I'm not going to keep to say a word. Let them now find out what will be presented. This woman is going to leave blood. So, nyenye muendelee na siasa yenyu hii. Muendelee. I will not keep quiet. I will only stand by my friend. Those who have been my friends, I'll tell them. Those who have not been my friends, to hell. Now, jua hiyo kutoka leo. 24th, mark the date. The bombshell she's gonna live in the Security Council. What? What? You saw what she left? You saw what she said about Sudan? Mr. Bashir did not listen to my advice. Bashir ignored my advice. For the first time, Bashir said he had got the best advice in his life. This he fought in the Second World War as a general, younger man. It was too late for him. People had been telling him, fight the UN. I went to Khartoum in front of 54 judges of the Supreme Court of Africa. And I delivered a speech that earned me, I can't tell you, it earned me something I have never earned here. Not in terms of money, but standing ovation. Everybody stood up before I sit down. Before I sat down, people were up. Bashir himself was up. He said that man has said something which is worth. I told Bashir, you have been fighting a different institution. Fight the International Criminal Court. Evidence collection system is wrong. Now, mark the date. We move on Amazonia. I can see Benjamin is in here. Ben, you have come.
Yes, Doc.
I can see you. Miriam can take over from here.
All right, yes, and I saw you really wanted to contribute to the Nigerian matter before we proceed, and our next country will be South Sudan because I think we've dealt with Amazonia. But just give us your thoughts on matters Nigeria and Biafra as it stands right now, because you really, really wanted to contribute to that shortly.
Well, I have to thank Dr. Mastanga for his courage, because it's not easy, in African continent to see someone that speak the raw truth, no matter how it sounds to the leaders. I once said, and I keep repeating myself, that African lack the leadership qualities in those that we elect to represent us in political offices. Like he said, Biafran is boiling today, and AU is just keeping quiet. The world is keeping quiet. They only want Biafrans to pick arms so that Americans will come in and say that we are going for peacemaking or something like that. So this has been the problem of African continent in terms of politics and crisis. And when we look at that, we'll see that if we can unite as Africans first and look inward in what is happening in our various countries, like Mastanga, you have the contact, you speak with the so many presidents in African continent. We will also plead with you because we need to use diplomacy in this kind of thing, because I believe Biafrans are all over the world and they are the unifying factors, or I would say they are the unifying force that will unite the all Africans. Why do I say this? Because in every country, be it in Amazonia, be it in South Sudan, be it in Kenya, Mozambique, South Africa, you see Nigerians. And when they go there, you see Biafrans, not just Nigerians. When you see Biafrans there, they do their legitimate business, they build houses, they contribute to the economic development of that society that they live in. So it comes with an adage that our people say that where you live is where you cultivate. Definitely, we keep our surroundings where we live as home. So in Nigeria today, when you go to Lagos, when you go to the north, you see a lot of industries, you see a lot of infrastructures put together by Biafrans. So as Doc mentioned this, that they have to bring this to African Union. It's left for those that will elect as our leaders to say, because an ordinary man in the street can only protest and say they don't want this, but you elected someone to represent you today. Those in African Union from Biafran sectors or something like that only believes in what they gain from their offices, not minding what the agony the Biafrans are going through in their land. Everywhere in the world, we are faced with so many discrimination, so many things. When you go back to your country, you find out that in your country it's far much worse than what you face outside.
And Benjamin, I had you there say earlier, and I see one of your comments here on our page here on Facebook, our readers. We do read your comments, so keep writing to us. So you're here saying that AU is waiting for Biafrans to pick arms so that the issue will be discussed. So what you're saying is, unless they see Biafrans aggressively fighting the Nigerian government, so perhaps AU will not consider this as an urgent matter to discuss. But also you've also said that perhaps they might see this as an opportunity for peacemaking. Will it be seeing it as an opportunity to get funding from outside, because now we have an emergency in Africa and they will benefit, the African Union member states will benefit from the crisis in Biafra, or will they see this as an opportunity to really find a solution for the people of Biafra? What kind of opportunity
I think if there is crisis today, or if Biafrans pick arm, this will be an avenue for the Western powers or the colonial powers to come in and now harness the resources that we have in our land, like it's happening in Sudan, it's happening in Congo, it's happening in so many conflict areas or so many conflict countries that we have in Africa. So it will not be like a kind of different scenario when we talk about Biafra. So this is what I meant when I say that this will be an opportunity to milk out what they want.
All right, Benjamin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm afraid we have to move on to our next country and our last one. But thank you so much for your contribution. And we're going to South Sudan, and we're going to look at the fragile peace in South Sudan. And sometimes back last week, the European Union called on the peace parties to compromise over the allocation of states and stop the widespread violence impacting on civilians in the country. And the disagreements between peace parties over how many states each party take is delaying the appointment of governors. And also, Dr. Earlier last week, representatives of the peace parties to the ceasefire monitoring body expressed concerns over the increasing deaths of soldiers at the training centers, and they're saying the ceasefire also raised the ceasefire and transitional security agreements monitoring verification mechanisms also raised fears over soldiers deserting the unified force training sites across the country. And what was really worrying about that is, I'll quote one of the members there, said that some go with their guns and melt into the community and cause a threat to the civil population. So the soldiers, some of them are disappearing from the camps because of the training conditions there. It's pathetic, but when they leave these camps, Doctor, they leave with the guns and they go into the communities, and there's no way of tracing back. So are we really going to solve this problem and find peace in South Sudan, or are we really fermenting other bigger security problems there in South Sudan?
Viewers, the situation in South Sudan needs prayers. COVID-19 came in and struck almost 3/4 of the cabinet. We wish them quick recovery so that they can come back to fight, to put together the peace process, revitalize the peace process. Let me tell you, Benjamin and Miriam, do you know what we can do on this television station now? Let's plead for international community to help the peace process in South Sudan. There is no money for the soldiers who have assembled. That's why many are disappearing, melting in the villages with guns. The ethnic tensions are beginning to rise. Ethnic people are fighting each other. All of this. And let me cut it short. Do you know why? It's Obasanjo. Obasanjo was given a mandate to find the human rights abusers. Human rights abusers. You know, the report I'm handling here, this is the original report, which nobody has ever seen. And I will not show it to the public. I'm waiting until we arise. You know, I hit my enemy very tactfully. Then I produce it. The AU sanctioned Mr. Obasanjo to find human rights abusers in Juba. When the war broke up in 2013, people just went in to kill people. In fact, they killed the people. Do you know how many South Sudanese who have died? Over 384,000. They have perished. And you come here, you tell me you are doing a peace process. What is this peace process? What is it? You cannot do a peace process without accountability. Miriam, Benjamin, accountability. accountability in any institution of peace conflict resolution is the basis of silencing the conflict. Why the Biafran war ended is accountability. A red flag was raised by certain countries that General Yakubu Gowon is using food as a tactic to kill Biafrans. You remember? You're Nigerian yourself. You might have been young.
Yes,
but I'm here to tell you history. That a red flag was raised over General Yakubu Gowon and that tall guy there, that one there, that one there, that one who thinks he knows guns better than us. They were killing, even Obasanjo took part in the killing of Biafrans. They were using food, starving them. I will show you the images. Tomorrow, Miriam, tell me, call me. My researchers look for the images of Nigerians during the Biafran war.
They're absolutely there. Even when you Google, you'll find these images. Yes, the children, they were malnourished.
Not because of bullets.
Yes.
Not because of bullets. But
the government
because of
denied them. Yes, denied them food. Absolutely true.
So you want me to talk to Obasanjo?
But it has not ended.
It still continues.
It has not ended. They are doing this. This a kind of state-sponsored genocide going on today in Nigeria. Because they do this from the policy because none of the Nigerians
all right, you seem to
why we are bought arms and ammunition is because they don't want to include Nigerians as what is stipulated in the Constitution of Nigeria, because Muhammad Buhari is just like so ethnic bigot. What would I say? I will not just use this one in this TV, but he is more focused of what is going to the Islamic world and the Northerners, not carrying others along. So it's a kind of continuous extermination or killing of the Biafrans. Policy in economically, politically, they are just like marginalizing the Biafrans. So I support what you say, Doc, because we need to unite ourselves, and we believe and hope that you as a voice of the Africans can also help us unify or talk to some of the presidents in Africa, like Uhuru Kenyatta, like so many of them that you are in very good relationship with. You at least try to convince them to see reasons why there should be peace in Biafra, because Nigeria, with their population of over 200 million people, if there is a war or crisis in Nigeria, Africa will not be a kind of palatable place to be with. So those in Kenya, those in South Africa, those in everywhere in African continent will be affected.
Absolutely.
Because of the role Nigeria and Biafrans are playing in the African continent.
And we hear you, Benjamin. Thank you so much, Doctor. For the interest of time, yes.
There is something, Miriam. I swear, I think God is with us.
How
breaking news that has just landed.
What has happened now?
WikiLeaks right now has just dropped
a bombshell.
A bombshell.
Okay, what is it?
Go, I will send it to you. It is very interesting. It's huge. Do WikiLeaks listen to some others as we are talking? They have just dropped on my phone the situation of International Criminal Court in Kenya. And they pointed, someone, is there, are these people in this town? And they said, look here. When I talked about the date, 24th September, they have dropped something. I'll send it to you. It's a long journey, and there's a long time we have done our level-based Benjamin.
Yes.
You missed our first part. But summarizing on South Sudan, for you, we shall create another time on Biafra. I'll never keep quiet until Biafra is free. Never will I keep quiet until Amazonia gets a state. The one of Amazonia, I'm closer to clinching it. God, give me the strength. I'm about to reach. The Americans have listened to me on it. They are there. Now someone has dropped me this bombshell of ICC. Why? I can't believe it. Miriam, it is interesting, not for Benjamin. It's very interesting. I told you that listen to Matangi. They don't want to listen. Call me names. Now it is there. This woman called Fatou Bensouda has done a deal with the French to go and become the president of Gambia. From ICC to president of Gambia. Senegal is the one that sent troops that removed General Yahya and threw him to Equatorial Guinea. Benjamin, you see international politics. Now,
of course,
again with Senegal to pressurize Aldo Barrow,
Adama Barrow, yes. Adama
yes,
Barrow.
To leave. Amara Barrow smelled a coffee. Then he said, no, I want more years, 3. They said, no, you have to leave. Madame Fatou Bensouda, her flight, by the end of this year, you'll see Gambia in chaos.
I fear that we don't have crisis in Africa, Doc.
We don't want any more crisis. I think
we don't want more crisis.
We have enough.
Benjamin and Miriam.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
yes, is to
the men who created the chaos.
Yes.
In order to fill their metros in Paris and the French. They will cause it. They are the ones who overthrew Yahya. Now they have worked out a deal with the president of Equatorial Guinea. Listen, have you seen any case filed in the ICC against Yahya?
No, of course, no.
Hey! Thank you, Benjamin. Miriam, did you see any? When I tell you things, give me credit. This one, I'm very happy. I am now very happy. Those in Kenya who have been insulting me. No. Listen to, read the WikiLeaks now. As if they were listening to what I was saying, man. Things are bad. I am happy, man. Let me drink my tea.
All right. And there it is, Doctor. Should we call it a day now? I think we're done for today.
In summary, Benjamin.
Yes. Your last words. And
you know your time in where you are.
Now in Bangkok is around 8:57 p.m.
We don't want Buhari to harm you, so we don't tell where you are.
No, but it's good to know. Good evening there in Bangkok. It's
in Bangkok
9 p.m. there. Good evening.
No, it's good I've seen you. They are very nice. You see the shirts. Very good shirts that the generals in Bangkok wear, those white with pockets.
Yes.
All right, Benjamin, your last words.
I want a big size. No, let me take this opportunity. I've done a great job today.
Okay, I will get one for you when I'm coming.
We talk as he signed off.
So my last word, just like Doctor, we have thank you if we start today to thank you because you have been so vocal on what is happening in African continent, the crisis, the truth, and everything. So we say more grace to what you are doing, and we also plead with you to organize some of the airlines in African continent, at least to show a kind of exemplary leaders in terms of those that will speak out, those that have content. At least, like I pleaded with you before, please, can you just be that same vocal voice for Africans and Biafran? Thank you very much, Doc.
And thank you so much, Benjamin. It was a pleasure to have you on the show, Doctor. Your last words.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I want to take this opportunity to thank all the guests who have been on this show since morning, since 2 p.m. I want to thank you, the moderator of this session. I am slowly coaching you to moderate.
I've been moderate, Doctor. I've been a journalist for 12 years. Thank you very much. But continue.
No.
No. Go ahead.
More tactics of moderation.
Well, we can always learn something new every day. Yes. Go ahead.
Yes. Not learning. You are not learning. But tactics of moderation. Now, a topic like this one, in the future, you moderate. Leave us to kill each other on the screen. And we thank you very much that at times, leave people to be wounded. We have learned quite a lot of what Rutendo was saying.
Absolutely.
Rutendo, I did not want to interrupt him because I wanted him to feel that Zimbabwe is isolated. But they have been using the wrong word of a strategy that remove sanctions. Who is going to remove? Just avoid the sanctions. My friend, the Nigerian Benjamin here will tell you, find the Panya road. Panya means a route.
Of course. But the issue is trust.
Yes. And you go, deliver the goods. They will not, you think, Miriam, in your sense, Nigeria, United States will ever remove sanctions on Zimbabwe? No. Zimbabweans have got to find good Nigerian businessmen like Dagote, sell them the diamonds, Dagote pays them money. They build the economy. And how Dagote sells the diamond, we don't know. Use Magendo to beat sanctions. Don't do a right. Thank you very much. Otherwise, I thank you very much.
Yes.
This is the way things have to go. This is the way every Sunday, Benjamin, make time for us to be on this. Now you are here, General. Don't run back. Your people in Onitsha, your people in Enugu, your people in Ibadan, your people, Port Harcourt, they look up to you to help them. Thank you very much, Miriam, for your time.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Benjamin. There, and earlier on, we had Daniel Wesonga, who has since left. But thank you so much, Daniel. And also we had Rutendo Martinya, there, the Frontline Start marketing consultant, founder, Zimbabwean, based in Johannesburg. And there we had Dr. David Matanga. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Let's meet here tomorrow, 9 a.m. for Daytime Express. A very good evening to you.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope,
Progress and prosperity depends on peace, but peace depends on us.